Good afternoon. I will call to order the July 17th meeting of the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. My name is Matt Brown. I serve as president of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Gagnon, Kronzer, Magrino, Slack, Sweezy, Breland, and Rockwell. This time I'll ask that you silence any mobile devices and we can get started with our meeting. Our first item of business is to approve the actions from the June 26th meeting. May I have a motion to approve those actions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion carries. Our next item of business is to organize the agenda. We'll determine which items will be considered on consent and which we will discuss. You can find hard copies of the agenda in the hallway. I'm not sure if there are enough for everyone in the room, but hopefully you can find some of those and follow along. So starting at the top of the agenda, item 1 is an alley vacation at 3118 Snelling Avenue and 3138 Snelling Avenue. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 1? Seeing no one, we'll put item 1 on consent. Item 2 is the Sparrow Academy School Building at 2701 and 2701 and a half California Street Northeast. That is a conditional use permit. Actually, several applications for a new school building there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 2? Okay, we have some people here, so we'll discuss item 2. Item 3 is the mixed use development at 900 West 50th Street. Several applications for a new commercial building. We'll discuss item 3, and just so I have a sense, how many of you are wanting to speak on item 3? So quite a few of you. We will place that on our list for discussion. Item 4 is Great River Landing at 813 North 5th Street, and that is several applications for a new housing project at that location. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 4? Seeing no one, we'll put item 4 on consent. Item 5 is Rex 26 at 2601 through 2621 Lyndale Avenue South. We'll discuss item 5, and actually we had continued that from our last meeting. We did close the public hearing at that meeting, but is anyone wishing to speak on item 5 that didn't get a chance to speak last time? Okay, no one is here for that item. We'll discuss it nonetheless. Moving along, item 6 is new townhomes at 915 6th Street Southeast. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 6? I'll mention that we did receive a modification to the staff report that there's an amendment to condition number 8 related to bike storage. So we'll accept that, provided we consider item 6 on consent. Item 7 is at 925 6th Street Southeast. Several applications for some modifications to buildings and a new building there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 7? Seeing no one, will put item 7 on consent. Item 8 is a restaurant building at 3939 East 46th Street, a variance and site plan review for a new commercial building there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 8? Seeing no one, will put item 8 on consent. Item 9 is the CAP at 3939 East 46th Street. Several applications for a new mixed-use building there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 9? We do have a few people who want to speak on that, so we can discuss item 9. And then finally, item 10 is at 333 East Hennepin Avenue. Several applications for a new mixed-use building at that location. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 10? Seeing no one, we'll put item 10 on consent. So our agenda as amended is as follows. Items 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 will be considered on consent. And we'll discuss items 2, 3, 5, and 9. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion carries. We have no committee of the whole consent agenda today. Although I'll turn things over to Commissioner Slack to consider our consent agenda.
Great, thank you, President Brown. So right now, we're going to open the public hearing for those items on the consent agenda. Those items are 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. So once again, anyone who wants to speak in opposition to or modify staff recommendation for any of those items on the consent agenda. Again, those items are 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10.
All right. And Commissioner Slack, I'll just note I'm recusing myself from item 4 as my spouse's employer had some involvement with that project.
So which item did you want to speak to? So that was the CAP project, correct?
Item 9.
So that's item 9. So that's not on consent. Okay. Anybody? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for those items on the consent agenda. So can I have a motion for approval of staff findings and recommendations for the items on the consent?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussions?
I don't have it.
And yeah, Commissioner Slack, I had noted.
Go ahead.
Did Commissioner Gagan, I just wanted to note again that I'm recusing myself from item 4.
Okay.
So again, just to reiterate what the chair said, we will be accepting the amendment A to site plan review by having this on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll turn it back over to President Brown.
All right, thank you. And moving along, our first item of discussion today is item 2. The Sparrow Academy School Building staff is Mr. Hanauer. And we saw this at committee of the whole, so perhaps you could just provide a brief presentation, and then we have a couple people who'd like to speak on the item.
Chair Brown and Commissioners, I'll pull up the visuals, but I think I'm not aware of the concerns from the public. We see the applicants proposing a new 2-story, 64,000 square foot school, 2 stories, 21 classrooms. The application, the conditional use permit to allow for the school in the residential district, the variance to increase the maximum off-street parking. You saw the condition of approval that we're looking to reduce that from 100 to 88. To reduce the front yard setback along California for just a portion of the building. And the applicant's supportive of us denying the variance for the fence to increase the height of that. And the site plan review. The applicants noted that they're supportive of all the conditions of approval and recommendations from staff. So I will have the presentation here or the visuals and turn it over to the public.
Sounds good, thank you. And at this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 2. I might ask the applicant just to say a few words first, if there's anyone here on behalf of the applicant. Yes, and please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Justin Fincher. I'm with JB Vang. We're the owner's rep for Sparrow Academy. I'm sure you are aware from the committee of the whole meeting about the size and scope of the project. We've been working with Sparrow for about a year now, looking at finding a new site for them as their successful public charter school looking to expand. We've done a 5-mile radius search to find the best possible site, and we landed on this one. And yeah, it's 21 classrooms, 7 specialty rooms. We are looking for more parking since it is a specialty type of teaching application at the school where the student to teacher ratio is a lot higher. It's 1 to 8 as opposed to a standard public charter school, which is about 17 or 1 to 17. So we're going to have a couple more teachers there on site. So I think that's the biggest thing to note. Other than that, everything else is in the application materials. So.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, yep, we can move on to some other speakers. So if you'd like to come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is John Lawrence. I live at 2659 California Street. This would be the property directly south of the proposed site. I've spoken to many of my neighbors about the project, and in a general sense, we don't have a concern or oppose the project in principle. We think it's a noble project, but there are several concerns that we'd like to see addressed. I will say I've been a 50-year resident of that property, and I'm a former president of the CCMT Neighborhood Association as well. I'm just going to run through 3 concerns in order of importance. So the first being the least important. This is a very industrial neighborhood. There are railroad tracks directly to the east of the property. There are high voltage transmission lines between those railroad tracks and the school. I'm not up on all the studies, but obviously there's been a lot of concerns raised about the safety of, children around high transmission power lines. So something just to bear in mind. Again, those are the least of my concerns. A little higher concern, also related to the industrial neighborhood, is that there is heavy truck usage along 27th Avenue, which again is just adjacent to the property. I'm not familiar with the school and the students, and I don't know if there'll be a lot of pedestrian traffic because of the school, but that's certainly a concern of mine, just from a safety standpoint. It's also a high-speed route that a lot of people use during rush hour that goes between University Avenue and Marshall Street. Other than Lowry Avenue, which is, controlled, this is kind of the path of least resistance, and we see a lot of high-speed traffic during those hours. Also a concern, when it's right around a school. Moving on to the second of my concerns, and this is a biggie actually. There was an aborted project on that property 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago, and it's because of the soil content. That soil is all peat. My house is actually sinking because of the property of the soil. I would highly recommend that be taken into consideration when building this property. If taxpayer money is being used, then I insist that be taken into consideration. The last project was publicly financed and aborted. It cost public money. I don't want to see a repeat of that, and this is a bigger scale project. This is the same problem that Edison High School experienced in the early 80s when their new gym started sinking and they had to close the building for 5 years. So again, something that should be taken into very serious consideration. The last of my concerns is the stormwater drainage. This has been a large problem already, and it's gotten progressively worse over the years. Again, I've lived there for 50 years. There's been a substantial amount of development in the east of this property, uphill from this property, with a lot of large blacktop parking lots over especially the last 20 years. All of that water is draining into a substandard storm drainage system. And what's worse is the path of least resistance is right through the property. There's a river that runs through this property every time there's any substantial rainstorm whatsoever. The intersection of 27th and California also floods with each storm of, say, half an inch or more. So if there is to be development on this property, I think the water runoff issue needs to be addressed, specifically if there are going to be any parking lot, which obviously there will be, but additionally, the school itself is going to have a problem with flooding unless that problem is addressed. And addressing that problem isn't redirecting the water into the intersection because the intersection already fills up with water. So those are my three major concerns. Again, I'm not opposed to the project in and of itself, nor are my neighbors, but these are some things that we'd like to see addressed.
All right, thank you. And I believe we have at least one other speaker on this item. If you'd like to state your name and address for the record.
I'm Teri Hollingsworth, and I live on 2738 California Street, which is smack dab in the middle of the big area. A couple of my concerns, again, we're not opposed to the plan at all. We think it would be a good addition, but some of our concerns are, excuse me, I gotta find my glasses here. All of the building, a lot of the buildings in our area are very old, like mine is from 1904 is when it was built. And to John's point, things are sinking already. I know during the winter time and during the springtime when the Metro Transit buses go over the railroad tracks, it literally shakes my house. And that has caused damage. And I'm assuming that since they did do some soil borings, I did see some soil boring trucks there, that they know that they have to drive pylons down and probably fairly deep. How is our homes? How are the homeowners going to be protected from damage, further damage? I don't think it would take much to knock my little house down. So, and we haven't seen any plans at all on what the school looks like or where the playground starts or, anything about that. And I guess it's a little bit of concern. I'd like to see what it looks like. Online, and we have an online thing called I Love Northeast. Some of the discussion was that that there will be a playground there. And I don't know if it's going to be a fence all around it. And if they did say that it's probably not going to be after hours activities because it's not that type of a school where they have football games. So anyhow, is the playground going to be open to the public, which I don't think is a good idea because we're right next to industrial area and there's a possibility that there's some roughness going on. Okay, that's nice. Look at that. Then also, if they are going to do pylons, maybe that can be confirmed or denied. How long does that take? I know this sounds kind of frivolous, but I've got a dog at home that can't even stand a firecracker from 5 miles away. And if I get those pylons going on and how, what time of day are they going to be on the weekends and the weeknights, how is that going to work? Do I have to, move to my cabin for a week or so? This might sound kind of silly, but because we have had several drug houses in our neighborhood, are there going to be any drugs stored on site that might be, attractive to, since it's a special needs school, as I understand? Is it going to be attractive to people coming in and trying to get that? One other problem challenge that we've had is our bedroom faces California Street, and across the street is a two-story warehouse, and they have bright lights, and we have to have blackout shades. And so how is the light pattern going to be on California Street? I know that sounds kind of silly, but do I have to take out my window in order to get some sleep? And then also the parking on California Street, is that going to be open to the school people? Right now we have some challenges already with parking on both sides of the street. So those are all my questions. I don't know how I'm going to get answers.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and we can answer some of your questions. I think for some of your more detailed questions, I might just put you in touch with Aaron, and he can probably answer in a little more detail than we can in this
Okay.
setting. So
Yeah,
I'd
that's
certainly,
fine. Just like to get some answers so I can at least bring it to our neighborhood and,
Makes
you know,
sense.
thought there'd be more people here, but.
yeah. And you can find the full set of plans on the city's website if you go to the agenda for this meeting. And you can
Okay.
also send Aaron an email
Yeah,
there, and I think you can get a little more
kind of see it
information.
here, but I'd like to look at it a little bit closer.
All right.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioners, are there any, first I should ask, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on item 2? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And commissioners, we have 5 applications before us. Commissioner Slack.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation for item A, conditional use permit.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item A, the conditional use permit. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Gagnon.
So who can they get their questions answered? How can they get their questions answered? From a staff member?
Yep, I would suggest that they just get in touch with Aaron, who's the
Okay.
staff person on this project. And I think particularly as it relates to kind of construction timing and some of the other
Perfect,
questions
thank you.
would be helpful. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gagnon?
Aye.
Cranzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. Commissioner Slack.
I'll make a motion to move staff recommendations for items B, C, and D, which are 3 variances.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve items B, C, and D, the 3 variances. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gagnon?
Aye.
Cranzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
8-0.
That motion carries. And Commissioner Slack.
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation for item E, site plan review, and the 8 listed conditions.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item E, the site plan review. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gagnon?
Aye.
Cranzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
8-0.
And that motion carries. And that concludes our discussion on item 2. Our next item for discussion is item 3, the mixed-use development at 900 West 50th Street, and staff is also Aaron.
Okay, so the proposed project at 900 West 50th Street. It's at the northwest corner of Bryant and 50th. The applicant, just to quickly summarize, the proposal is to replace the small service station, about 2,000 square feet, has a large surface parking lot in front, with a approximately 9,900 square foot multi-tenant commercial building that would span most of the property, which you can see in the rendering at the bottom. The application, site plan review, variance to reduce parking to 0, and variance to reduce the setbacks along the north and west property lines. You have a lot of public comments, both in the staff report and the addendum packet. There's some for the project and some that are not in support of the project. The main concern comes down to parking, and CPED is supportive of the project and the variance to reduce the amount of parking. Just looking at the purpose of our off-street parking standards of the zoning code, chapter 541, it's the parking standards are there to enhance the compatibility between parking areas and surrounding areas, at the same time to promote and encourage flexibility, and recognizing that if you provide too much parking, off-street parking, that it can conflict with city's policies related to transportation, land use, and urban design. And this is, we saw the unique circumstances with this site being the small size of the project, 10,000 square feet. If you did provide off-street parking based upon our current standards for drive aisle and standard size for parking, it's going to take up approximately half the site. So we found that those unique circumstances, especially for this commercial node, warranted support of the variance application. Just examples of or images of the neighboring the buildings at this commercial node. Number one, or the top right, is the Bachman building at the northeast corner. Number two is at the southwest corner, the Cleaners building, and then number three, the malt shop and patina building. Staff also found the project in line and spirit and intent of the comprehensive plan in terms of a few different sections of the plan. It's from a land use and economic development standpoint. As I mentioned before, 50th and Bryant is a commercial node. There's 5 properties within the node. And it's also along 2 community corridors that are recognized as having larger traffic amounts. The policy support with the features of this development, such as having, from a land use and economic development standpoint, this project we feel will support the growth and sustained vitality of a commercial node. We also see that this will also provide a greater mix of goods and services to the neighborhood and also the city. I just want to just looking at this map and the zoning, you have the C1 zoning for the properties that are in the commercial node. The other properties are residential, so the potential of additional commercial properties coming to this area is very unlikely. And this has framed the boundaries of the commercial node for years. From a transportation standpoint, the project we feel also is supported, is in line with the comprehensive plan guidance. With the elimination of 2 curb cuts, the increasing the width of the sidewalk, both on 50th and Bryant, to 6 feet. Right now, the conditions are not good. That's going to definitely improve the conditions for pedestrians. They're adding more bike parking, and having a building at the corner, along with the transit screen, will also provide amenities for transit riders. You'll have coverage with the awnings, and the real-time transit screen that we're recommending for a condition of approval will help support city and other jurisdiction goals of increasing transit ridership. Finally, from an urban design standpoint, it's also in line with our policies in bringing that building up to the street, having pedestrians be able to engage with the building, seeing what's going on, and the awnings and the building lighting will help the pedestrian friendliness of the area. Now, just to note a couple things beyond what was in the findings. CPED and Public Works definitely did not dismiss that there are parking and traffic related, that there is a fair amount of traffic in the area and that there is parking demand for on-street parking. But we just want to note that there are 60 commercial nodes throughout the city, and this is a successful one, and we want to see it continue by having another business continue the vitality of the area. These are the traffic counts for Bryant and 50th Street. Compared from 2006 to 2015, and traffic has got 2015 was the lowest traffic count in that 10-year period. So 50th, there's over 10,000 cars, but I just want to note that traffic levels have not increased over the last 10 years. They've gone down. Sorry. So it's part of the stand-up that I got here. But also, I think it's letter 3. It's a very informal and quick parking study done by Public Works at the council member's request. The main objective, as outlined in I think that first paragraph, is to determine whether or not a substantial problem with parking exists in the area. And my colleague in Public Works saw that there was a demand for on-street parking, but that the current situation does not warrant a critical parking area, or that it is in a condition that you cannot find on-street parking for residents or businesses. And I'll just note anecdotally, I mean, I'm well aware of the site and did a site visit on Saturday and did see, that there was on-street parking demands definitely along Bryant, on Aldrich, the southern portion. But from that, beyond that, I concur with what my colleague said in that short study of the area. And in terms of off-street parking for residents, we do feel that most of the properties, the single-family homes in the area, do have off-street parking within garages. And I just outlined the blocks that do have alleys that help reduce the amount of conflicts that there is when trying to find to get into their property from the street. With the alleys, that helps reduce the curb cuts and the points of contention with people trying to find on-street parking. Finally, I'll just say that we really do feel like the public process has worked. And I've had a number of conversations with people within the neighborhood and the Lyndhurst neighborhood president. And I'm sure if Paul's here that he would say not everything may have been addressed in that letter that you have in the addendum packet, but a number of these conditions of approval and are things that his letter and our conversations got to a point where the applicant is supportive of those conditions. They're supportive of wrapping the building in the same exterior material on all 4 sides. That wasn't in your drawings in the first, what you have in your drawings. They are looking at an additional, or they're having the trash enclosure or refuse receptacle at 50th and Bryant that the building owner will maintain. So there's a gate that the neighborhood was encouraging the developer to have. This is for the western property. And then finally, an update to the plan for the site plan. The left is the site plans you see in your packet. The right is a version that's new. They're looking to reduce the building setback 2 feet here to definitely looking to provide closer to 6 feet, or actually 6 feet or more of sidewalk, and then space for bike parking. So we really do feel that with the public hearing process, there's a number of things that were brought up that we were able to incorporate into the conditions of approval. I'm happy to answer questions you may have.
All right, commissioners, are there any questions of staff? Hearing none, we can move along, and I'll open the public hearing for this item. I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first, and we'll get to some other speakers momentarily. And please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Teri Jacobs, and I am the developer, one of the developers of the hopeful development of that corner, that intersection. I want to say that we did have a neighborhood meeting. We heard the neighbors and their discussion about the parking and so forth. There's not a whole lot that we could do even if we made it into a parking lot. We'll probably be able to park about 15 or 16 cars. We looked at a number of options to go underground. Because of the size of the site and the dimensions of the site, you end up having a ramp to go down. You end up with about 6 to 7 cars per level. So in order to meet the parking requirements for the building itself, we'd probably be 3 levels down in the ground. And that would include pilings and everything else in a residential neighborhood, and we just didn't want to do that. We also took into account that the front of the building is something that we really want to enhance. We've set the building back from the property line, which is the edge of the sidewalk, which is a 6.5-foot sidewalk right now. We set it back an additional 8 feet because we wanted to provide a dining experience and a residential and pedestrian experience along the front of our building, and also allow some streetscape and landscaping and so forth. We provided on the east side of the building, we set the building back, as Aaron noted, an additional 2 feet all along that side to accommodate, I believe it's either 13 or 15 bike parking stalls. We're absolutely going to encourage each of the tenants and all of their employees to take into account and try to encourage people to take the transit or bicycles or walking or whatever to and from the site if possible. So that's kind of a capsule of what it is. If you have any questions, I can answer. There's a lot of people who want to talk.
And commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, we can move on to some other speakers. And I understand a lot of you would like to speak. So what I'm going to do is set an initial time of 30 minutes for public testimony. We can extend that if absolutely needed. And I'll also ask that if you do start to go over about 2 minutes, I'll ask you to kind of wrap up just so we're respectful of everyone's time. I won't cut anyone off, but we'll just remind you to keep moving along. So also, I would like to ask that everyone is just mindful of not simply repeating things others have said and continue to bring new information. So we can start over on this side of the room. Who would you like? Go ahead. You can go first. No, you do need to go to the microphone, just so if you don't mind, just so it's picked up on the audio. I apologize for that. And please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Roxy Olson, and I live at 5015 Bryant Avenue South. I have lived there for 24 years with my husband. My husband recently passed away, and the support I received from my neighborhood and all the businesses around the corner is nothing to be believed. It was so heartfelt. It makes you feel you're a part of something. And this has been developed by the community that works around this. It's a lovely, lovely neighborhood. As a woman with limited mobility, the flexibility of being able to go to these shops and restaurants, it makes you engaged. It keeps you a part of your community. I've looked at the project very seriously, and I think it's well thought out. I think it is respectful of what's existing now. I think it would complement everything that's going on. I'm really very, very much in favor of it. I hope you will consider it seriously because I think this is a really wonderful project. I thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. And who would like to speak next? Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Mary Donovan, and I live 6 houses up from the old Joe's Break Shop on 49 and Bryant. So I just have to walk down the hill. And I agree that the proposal is going to be an improvement, and it's really a good idea. I just have a few concerns for. My first one is that the proposed building is too big. The setbacks, 6 or 8 feet, I went down and I was looking at the drawings, and there's the building, then there's a planter, and then if there is proposed tables for outdoor seatings and people to walk by, it's too small. It needs to be larger. Like St. Genevieve's, I measured their sidewalks, they were 12 feet, and those are small tables, but that is a little bit. So there's no consideration, this is a very big thing for me, is for the stormwater runoff. There's currently 19 mature maple trees and 19 8-foot shrubs that totally block the parking lot. The suggestion of 4 trees on this south side, it just is not compensation. It's required the 184 square foot on-site landscaping when I read the site review, and it seems like that's something that we can't give up given the Minnehaha Creek, the lakes, the river, everything. This water is super important. And then I wanted to recommend maybe a patio on the west side that would connect to the bike lane. I think the way this picture looks up here, it's really hot. When you go to walk from our house to Kowalski's, that development isn't as good as our development because there's no trees. It's like you're walking through the Sahara Desert. So this just looks to me like it's like the same consideration. We need more trees than the little shrubs in between just on the south side. And the ones on the back side, on the north side that block the condo, that's important. I mean, that's a barrier for those people that live in those condos. So setbacks in your zoning is 5 feet. I thought that would be important on the north and west side for the residents. Then also on the, my second point is there needs to be more windows on Bryant. That is it's 35%, I guess, is zoning code, and it's 30%. It looks like that one area where all the bikes are gonna be is it's just this huge gap. There should be windows there. I mean, that's not very aesthetic. I was thinking, is it like the dumpster's gonna sit out there on trash day? And then also my next consideration is the exterior material should match the Bachman's building and the Patina building. And they suggested metal that looks like wood. I think that isn't the same, it should be brick. And you know how Patina and Zinnia, they have their cut off corners. So the entrance is really big. So I was suggesting in this picture, the southwest corner, angle that corner so it's a larger, it's more welcoming. And, you know, that's why this neighborhood is popular. It's because it has a lot of character. So I was wondering who the retail shops are going to be, the little teeny 1,000 square feet shops with no exterior windows, just the front windows. It sounds like maybe like a phone company or something. So I would just propose maybe a little smaller building with consideration for stormwater runoff and perhaps just less tenants. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. And who would like to speak next? Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is John V. Lee. I live at 4920 Bryant Avenue South, about a third of the block up from the development. And I'm speaking in opposition to the development. I don't think they should be granted variances for anything they want to do. And my reasons, number one, are parking. You know, in the staff report, they note that in the last 11 years, you folks or your predecessors have approved parking street variances of 20-0, another variance of 12-0. And I'm kind of wondering, when does it stop? Parking is difficult. And if we're going to take the hit for parking, I prefer personally that we not do another commercial development. We already have several very successful restaurants. And if you look or talk to the people that are visiting those restaurants, there are many of them that are driving in from the western suburbs to eat at these restaurants. They're destination restaurants. Frankly, I think it's kind of a joke to think that people are going to be taking a bus to come to these restaurants. It's not happening, folks, and it's not going to happen. I also think that the plan that shows how trash and deliveries will be made is simply inadequate and actually dangerous. Because the way it's set up right now, and the developer the proposed developer during our community meeting even said this, that it would most likely that trash trucks and delivery trucks would have to double park on Bryant to do their deliveries and pick up the trash. Well, there's a bus stop right there. So how is the bus going to get around these delivery vehicles in the wintertime? And how about traffic being backed up on Bryant as they're waiting for a delivery vehicle, double parked, and a bus, and trying to get around that to get out of the neighborhood? Seems to me that traffic flow should have a higher consideration here. Last one is just kind of a pet peeve. And that is that I've lived in this neighborhood now for about 12 years. And there was no trash can down at the bottom of 50th and Bryant. I got one from the city. My neighbors and I pick up the trash from that trash can. The city doesn't do it. We pick it up and throw it in our trash cans. The weeds in the parking lot and along the edge. Somehow miraculously, in the last month, someone has actually weeded that thing for the first time in 12 years. So if you're going to grant a variance to a commercial development that would include more commercial retail, well, I would hope that you'd make a stipulation with that variance that they really do have to clean up their property weekly. So I'm also very disturbed that they're going to cut down all the trees, and we get to look at the back of a building with a bunch of bricks. Not happy about that. But what I really think is important here is, why do you give variances in the first place? And I presume you give variances because you want to do it for something, a greater good. Now, we already have restaurants, we have coffee shops. If we're going to do a variance, I'd be fine with a small apartment building there. If we have to take the hit, let's build some more housing. City needs it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And okay, next speaker. Who would like to speak next? Anyone? Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Steve Seitz. I live on 5006 DuPont Avenue South, so a couple blocks away from the proposed development. And I wasn't quite sure how this was working, but I wrote a letter to the city council members just today. But I wanted to read some of my points from that. Really what this comes down to for most of my neighbors, and could I just see a show of hands of who's here in opposition to this development? Okay, so maybe not everybody's going to speak, but I think there's some pretty strong negative views of this this project. It really comes down to parking and livability. There's already a parking issue in this area. I understand that it's a commercial node and that buildings are going to get built and businesses are going to go in there, but we need to be smart about this. We can't create this and then hope that it's going to be okay. We can't eliminate parking and think that that's going to eliminate cars. I found it somewhat ironic that they're really worried. Bike parking seems to be a high priority. I mean, bike parking, that's great. People can bike. I agree that nobody will take the bus to go to these restaurants. But let me just, the big thing is the parking. So the Lyndhurst Community Association conducted 2 meetings, June 21st and July 13th, to raise our concerns about this project. I'll mention that July 13th meeting was the day before the parking study was published on July 14th. So we didn't even have that parking study when that meeting took place. Neither meeting was attended by Councilmember Palmasano, and as a result, I do not believe she does not have a full understanding of the views of her constituents in the immediate area and is not able to properly represent our concerns on this matter at this time. I don't know what the point of community meetings are if we don't have the people that we vote for there to hear our concerns. The current traffic study, dated July 14th, 2017, was conducted in 2 time periods over a span of only 10 days, June 23rd to July 2nd. The 2 periods were June 23rd to June 27th and June 30th to July 2nd. It is worth noting, I think this is a very key point, that the second study was conducted over the 4th of July holiday weekend. And you're going to tell me that that's an accurate representation of the parking situation when you're counting parked cars over the 4th of July? Over 10 days. We live there year round. It's not just a matter of what's 1 week in June. There's winter, there's cold, there's summer. I just can't understand how that can satisfy the parking study. The study, and I quote, "The study consisted of placing cameras with views of half blocks of Aldrich Avenue South, Bryant Avenue South, and Colfax Avenue South, both north and south of West 50th Street," end quote. As such, the analysis concludes that there was parking pressure on the half blocks of Bryant Avenue South, both north and south. Well, isn't that interesting? The cameras only reached half the block, and there was parking congestion right up to the end of that. I can assure you that parking pressure extends beyond the half blocks of Bryant, captured by the limited range of the cameras. Had cameras been set up with extended range, it would have been immediately apparent that the congestion on Bryant extends south to West 51st Street and beyond. And I say Bryant South because I don't drive north of 50th typically, so that's the one that I experience on a daily basis. The conclusions drawn from this current study do not accurately reflect the parking congestion issues currently experienced around the 50th and Bryant intersection. The addition of 4 new businesses comprising nearly 10,000 square feet of retail space will exacerbate an already difficult parking situation. So what I'm asking for today is merely to delay the vote on the requested parking variance for the 50th and Bryant Avenue South property and take some more time to do an appropriate parking study. I understand that buildings get built and developers develop, but we need to be smart about that. And I don't know how doing a 10-day traffic study in the middle of summer over the 4th of July weekend is the way we want to go about developing this node. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, next speaker, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kevin Cavany. I'm at 5115 Colfax. We've lived there for 38 years. And these last three gentlemen and ladies have said everything I wanted to say except safety. The city has gone overboard to put in bike boulevards. Bryant is a bike boulevard. At 51st and Bryant, there is a U-turn by a car every 5 minutes. I'm waiting for the first vehicle homicide on that corner. It will happen. And I hope the city and the project people are ready for it. I fear for people's lives. You cannot see on that intersection whatsoever. We can all complain about cars in front of our house, but when you see trucks parked, a semi that takes 2/3 of the space on the south side of 50th at Bryant, how is a bicycle going to get by when a car can't get by? I get stuck there all the time. If we have now delivery trucks trashed out on the north sides of Bryant and the south side of 50th, I mean north and south of 50th, or better yet, on 50th, with 4 bus stops, somebody is going to get killed. Think about it.
All right, thank you. And next speaker, yes, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom LaBrie. I'm at 5019 Colfax. I've been in the area my whole life. Grew up on DuPont and 45th, currently 25 years at 5019. And I am one of 2 people, I think, in the entire area that's blessed with a driveway. I'm reminded years ago, the Metropolitan Airports Commission commissioned a study regarding plane noise, which is something we all suffer from. It's a quality of life issue. This is a quality of life issue. And back then they said there are 1,250 flights in and out of MSP every day. Now this is 25 years ago, and they said it's not going to change. There's not going to be that much more growth. It's 2,500. I mean, so you get what you pay for. I appreciate your study on the parking, you know, and the traffic in our neighborhood, but it's significant. My concerns are parking. A couple years ago, the people who live on Bryant had a neighborhood meeting to discuss the issue, and they met with businesses. And the businesses said, what we'll do is we'll encourage our employees to spread out. And I'm not saying that, you know, if the parking, this new development exacerbates the parking on Colfax, it's going to spread to DuPont, it's going to spread to Emerson, it's going to, you know, it's going to, you know, continue to span out. The issue is this development will probably have daily a minimum of 25 employees. That's conservative. Depends on what the other 3 businesses will be. That's 25 automobiles, not counting the customers. So it's going to be a significant problem, getting worse. Another comment was made that this would be the last development. Well, if this goes through, the laundry cleaners and the Kick building that's directly across the street from them, that's going to be the next thing to go because there's too much revenue that's produced. And I get it that the city is looking at some significant tax revenue. But as a homeowner, we pay a significant amount of money for property taxes. So if we do this development, I propose a 50% reduction in our property taxes. Then I'm all for it. So cars that park in front of my home. Now, in the wintertime, plows go by, I've got my driveway, I shovel that, and then I shovel my walkway so people can get up to my home. And people will park in front of the walkway, which forces my guests to come up my driveway. Now, I don't know how many other people are familiar with this. We go to great lengths to keep our street or, you know, shoveled, only to have it blocked by a person who's going to run over to patina. I don't see this as enhancing the neighborhood at all. All this is development for revenue for taxes, revenue for business. And I get that. I'm in the construction business. I love development, but not here. Alleys, granted, lots of alleys, but keep in mind, our homes were, my home is 115 years old. Average home is probably 100 years old. Our garages were built for one car. I have 3 cars. So that's all I have to say. Do your best, but lots of people are opposed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, next speaker, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Becky ODell. I live at 5117 Colfax Avenue South. And I think some of my concerns are similar to what I've heard from others, certainly concerns first and foremost about variances and balancing between residential and commercial development in this area, and feeling like this is getting pushed in a way that negatively impacts both property values for those of us that have lived in the area, as well as the issues of safety and cars and all of the above. I would echo Kevin's comments that 51st and Bryant is a continual U-turn. There is traffic and parking well down to 51st and on 51st on a regular basis, sometimes beyond that. And we've got kids there, it's the bike boulevard, and that's a big concern. So I went around and talked to our neighbors, actually on the weekend of 4th of July weekend. And well, I missed lots and lots of people because they were gone, and I suspect people weren't going to our restaurants either, so I'm also suspect of the parking study that weekend. But I did collect on the south side on Bryant, Colfax, and DuPont 69 signatures of neighbors who are concerned and oppose the parking variance because we're concerned about what it's doing for our neighborhood. And I think as I talk to people, the other piece that I would point out, and I don't know, given all of the current zoning, but the comment that I got most often for people is what we need desperately, we need in our neighborhood and in our city is more housing. We need housing for our children. Many of us are now, parents of young adults who want to live in this neighborhood, who want to live in Minneapolis, and they're priced out. And it would be much better if we have concerns about supporting the development of vital and supportive transportation, in supporting the neighborhood nodes to be able to be retail for the local community as opposed to people coming in from the suburbs to our neighborhoods, then what we need is higher density. We need housing. And that would be a significant improvement over additional retail that, at least in the proposal, completely duplicates on every score. Coffee shop, we've got it. Restaurants, we've got it. Exercise facility, we've got it. Ice cream, my goodness, we have it. I mean, this particular development as planned adds nothing for our neighborhood. And so I urge you to think carefully about the issue of variances and making the trade-offs between residential, and think long and hard about supporting what we really need as a community, which is higher residential density. So I've got these signatures, and I will pass them on. Thank you.
Thank you. And next speaker, yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Paul Donovan, 4916 Bryant. So first of all, to staff and to you, thank you, because I know this isn't an easy job. When I work in the commercial real estate industry, and we work in this world a lot, so I appreciate all the dynamics, but I would suggest to you when you read through the report, It looks like the boxes were checked, but the depth isn't there. And so my overriding theme to you is your responsibility as a planning commission is to be a steward of the assets that are in this city. And there's thoughts that you have to give to how things get developed. And when there's demand, you have an opportunity to customize things more to the liking of the community, while certainly balancing the needs to make sure it's economically feasible. But there's missing links. I mean, there's an inference that the bus line is going to be appealing. So you give up 21 parking spots and you get 13 bikes? I mean, why not 26 bikes? Why not 39 bikes? I mean, it's just these little things. Why not? Well, who says it can't have parking in the back? All I heard was it's because it shrinks the size of the building. Well, what does that mean? What's the impact? Well, who says it can't be a green roof? What does that mean? Where's the exploration of it? So, staff's very busy. I get it, and I don't begrudge them. They have, in today's world, thousands of files on their desk. But I would just ask you that when you have an opportunity, if you own this asset, and you said to someone, I want something that's more complementary to the neighborhood, I think you have leverage, okay? And it just seems like we checked every box and we missed going in depth on it. And people have spoken to public safety. You really have to think about that. I mean, you cannot you cannot walk across 49th and Bryant. If you're a child and you walk across 49th and Bryant, it doesn't flow, okay? Not gonna happen. You've gotta go across midstream. So people aren't thinking about it. You have an opportunity, you might as well do it right, and you might as well pause and you might as well think through it. Because I think you're missing enough, all the information that's necessary to make a smart decision. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And yes, next speaker, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Sharon Landers, and I live on 5013 Bryant Avenue South, actually 2 houses down from the restaurants there. I moved to 50th and Bryant 25 years ago because I wanted to be in the city. I like the atmosphere. I didn't move to Woodbury where there's lots of parking. I moved there because I wanted to be in the city. Also, I like to remind people, when someone goes to Patina, for instance, they spend an average of maybe a half hour parked and then they leave. If they go to a restaurant, most people don't spend more than, I would say, an hour having dinner. So, I mean, constantly there's space that's opening up. So it's not like if you put an apartment building there, by the way, they're going to be there overnight and on their days off all day too. Where this is continually changing. Cars are coming, going, coming, going. So it doesn't really, it's never solid no parking. There is parking there. It's just, you sometimes have to walk maybe a half a block, God forbid, but I think it's a good idea. And by the way, our property value has gone up, not down. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And next, yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
I am Paul Ragazzino, the president of Lyndhurst Neighborhood Association, and I live at 5112 Emerson, so I am not directly affected by the parking. But I did want to address some of the things that were not discussed previously. So on the Bryant Avenue, they've asked for no setback at the northeast corner, the typical residential to the commercial setback. And that's right where the condominium's driveway comes out. And I think since we're focused on pedestrian traffic and bike traffic, I think this creates a very dangerous situation where there won't be any visibility of the cars coming out of that driveway. So I would recommend that we keep at least 5 or 10 foot setback just at the corner to make sure that cars coming out of the driveway can see pedestrians coming. Also, that creates an abrupt change of setback from the apartment, the condo building to the north and the face of the proposed building. At the north and west setbacks, I've heard from 1 or 2 neighbors that they don't mind that. And I think it's a valuable setback, trade-off for the 8 foot setback along 50th Street. I think that's a really advantageous setback because we've been trying to increase the walkability of 50th Street. As far as the site plan review, the building materials, originally they had 30 or all concrete block on the north and west sides. I hear from Aaron that they've changed it to metal panel. That's better, but I still kind of question the use of metal panel along the north side because that's right where the driveway is. And I can imagine after 5 years, that's not going to look very good if you get some dings from cars veering off. As well as they do show metal panel going all the way to the ground, which is going to get messed up with snow blowers and whatever. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, next speaker, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Jason Seifert, and I live at 4919 Colfax Avenue South. I met with many of my neighbors, and collectively, we have a petition of 82 neighbors that are directly surrounding the space, 2 blocks on a perimeter of this address. And our concerns are directly related to the parking variance, being that the size of the building is 9,900 square feet, that the parking is 16 spaces, and if the building size is reduced, therefore the demands and the requirements are less. And we understand that there is going to be development in our community and our neighborhood, but we just feel that at the size of the building, that the demands will be burdensome to the neighbors. Currently, Colfax is maybe not as busy as Bryant and Aldrich are, but if we allow this building to go through at its current size, we feel that it will be a burden on Colfax and DuPont and beyond. So I have shared these signatures with Aaron Hanauer, and you've probably seen them as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And we're at our 30 minutes, but I think we have just a few more people who would like to speak, so we can let you speak. Yes, in the back, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Joan Zanasek, and I now live at 5100 Bryant. Prior to that, I lived at 5008 Aldrich, back in the day when the malt shop first came into being. And the neighbors got together, and we were having issues with traffic at that time. And we fought City Hall, so to speak, and we had Aldrich made into a one-way. I understand that that wouldn't be possible for Bryant. We're a snow emergency route. We're also a bicycle route. Colfax, on the other hand, could it be considered that maybe they could have a one-way street? Bryant and 51st is my corner, and I watch so many close calls every single day. If we could get a 4-way stop there, it would help considerably. The bikers often are at fault too. I'm not just blaming the cars. They really don't slow down. Hardly anybody comes to a full stop. One day I was going to start tallying, and I thought, forget that. I run out of paper. But the parking situation, I have the same issue. People block my little sidewalk that I try to use for my guests. I have all-night parkers sometimes. I don't know if they're people that work there or whatever, but they are. Some are all day and into the wee hours. Some are there from afternoon until the next day. I don't know where they're coming from. I've considered putting notes on their cars. I wondered about what one would have to do to have a limitation put on the amount of time that someone can park in a residential area. My husband was handicapped. We did not even apply for a handicap zone because we did have a driveway that we could use and I could get him in and out through the back. But that corner is an accident waiting to happen. It's very, very dangerous, and I hope that you give very serious thought to things that can be done to help with the traffic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just a couple more speakers. Yes, please state your name and address for the
record. Scott Russom, 4948 Bryant. We're the condo building immediately behind the proposed commercial lot. With respect to setbacks in our driveway, the developers have talked to everyone in our building. In fact, the owners had a building meeting on Thursday of last week, and we're all very much in support of the project. And I don't think anyone else is here from our building. I know one was trying to make it. But we're all excited for the proposed commercial development there on the corner. We are all living where we live. I've lived there for 9 years. I've lived in the area my whole life. We want to live and we want to have our residents be around mixed use, mixed commercial. We all enjoy using the restaurants and the shops in the area. We use them on a weekly basis. So we're excited for that. As far as the parking is concerned, I don't think I can sit here and disagree with my neighbors that parking and traffic is a very real issue in that area. It's impossible to say that there's always on-street parking or there's open traffic flow. There isn't. There's buses, there's bikes, there's cars. I don't have a garage spot. I don't have a driveway. I have to park on the street every day, and it's a challenge. That doesn't inhibit my desire to have this project go through and have the commercial lot there. And I think as many of our neighbors have also talked about, there might be alternative solutions to the parking concern. I don't know that a variance one way or the other is going to solve the problem for the neighborhood as a whole. I don't know that 4 spots, I don't know that 16 spots is going to make a difference to the size of the problem. Permit parking with permits for the people that live in the area to park on the street with maybe a 3-hour limit for those using commercial just to keep the flow moving might be an option. There might be other options. Again, I don't know that having one variance, one direction or the other is going to make or break what the traffic flow and the parking problem is, and would be interested to hear what other options may be other than housing a solution under one commercial development. Thanks.
All right, and yes, please state your name and address for the record, and just a couple more speakers.
I'm Teresa Orth. I live at 5015 DuPont Avenue South. I have one question for Aaron. Am I allowed to ask a question?
You can ask a question to us.
I just want to know if there's any financial incentives to the developer at all from the district or from the city.
Mr. Wittenberg, maybe you can clarify.
Commissioners, perhaps Aaron is aware of something that I'm not, but I am not aware of any financial participation from the city in the project.
Okay, and the other thing I think everyone is forgetting is that we live in Minnesota, and we can only bike about maybe 6 months out of the year. And otherwise, people are going to be driving and they're going to be parking. And then we're going to have snow emergencies, and people are going to be able to park on one side of the road. And you're going to push that parking way into my street and other streets. So don't think that there's going to be a lot of people biking. You go to St. Genevieve, you're going to drink a couple glasses of wine. I'm not going to be biking home, and neither are those people. And neither are the people if this restaurant serves liquor. You don't want them on their bikes if they had a couple of beers. So you have to consider who's going to be riding those bikes.
All right, and yes, one more speaker. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Randall Stokel, and I live directly on the west side of the proposed project. And I just will keep it very brief because my wife warned me if I said what I really thought, most of my neighbors probably wouldn't like me. So I will just say I'm in 100% support of the project. You got 2 options, people. Look at that picture up there. And when you're thinking 5-10 years down the line, when you're going to sell your home, what's going to add property value to your property? Joe's, an unkempt, dilapidated brake shop with a guy with a bad attitude, or what they're proposing? Thanks much.
All right, thank you. Okay, no more applause. Is there anyone else who would like, okay, one last speaker? Oh, no, excuse me, you spoke earlier, I believe, didn't you? No, you didn't. Okay, go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
If I did, sorry. Paul Locks, 5012 Colfax Avenue South. So I could sit here and echo a lot of the issues, but I live on Colfax, and you might have the turnover quickly on Bryant, but Colfax is where the long-term parking all day for the Kick studio or the Kick employees are, and then at night for the cooks and the staff park on Colfax. 3-4 houses in from the corner of 50th and Colfax. They haven't reached further, but I think it's a successful node. I think part of it is, or the main reason it's a successful node is the size of it now. If you keep giving the variances, as someone said, for no parking for all of it, that just, then it's like right now when you get the good, you had your review of the area and it came back as It's good. Well, yeah, so are you waiting for it to get bad? I mean, great, it's good now because of the size of it. You keep adding to it, and then it gets to be, oh, it's a problem. But then who bears the burden? The residents. The businesses are already in there. I know 50th is a corridor. I know Bryant's a corridor. I don't think living in the city you signed up for just because you live close to a node that you have to have all these parking issues. And the safety is also a big concern of cars using the driveways to turn around and the U-turns going on in the area as well. Just more traffic creates more issues. There's lots of kids. We're trying to revitalize the neighborhood. So, I mean, all the neighborhoods are in Minneapolis, and that's why we live here, is I like having the nodes, but enough is enough when you get to a certain size. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? One last person, yes. Please state your name and address.
Linda Moran at 5025 Bryant. Parking is a huge issue. We happen to have a driveway on Bryant, and very often people will just park in front of the driveway. If there are no spaces, they'll pull up. We've had people say, well, only be 10 minutes or so. Yes, I know. We have painted the curb yellow, and it still hasn't helped. In the winter, we put out the big orange cones. People still zoom into the driveway, turn around, and will often park in our driveway. I don't think this development is probably going to make any difference to us because we're already full. But the people on Colfax on the east side of the road, they all have driveways. And so for them, this is going to be huge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If there is no one else who would like to speak, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, we have 5 applications before us. Are there any further questions of staff, or would someone like to start things off with a motion? Commissioner Rockwell.
A quick question for Aaron. I noticed on the alternative compliance suggestions, we've got the principal entrance is all facing 50th, and there's a requirement that they face Bryant. That one faces Bryant, correct? In site plan review. And my question was, would a corner entrance, as suggested in one of the early comments, satisfy that, so that, you know, it cuts at a 45-degree angle like the other corners on that block? Would that satisfy a Bryant-facing entrance if it faced both Bryant and 50th? If that makes sense.
Yes. Commissioner Rockwell, yes. If there was a corner entrance that was at a diagonal at that location, then we would not need alternative compliance.
All right. Any further questions? Aaron, I might ask a question. At least one of the speakers had raised the issue of deliveries and kind of the location of that service entrance. And maybe this is more a question for the applicant, but depending on, and maybe you haven't identified all the tenants yet, but what are you envisioning for kind of the timing and frequency of deliveries that would be using that service entrance? Yep, you can come forward.
I think the timing is totally dependent on what the decision, I mean, how quickly you people reach a decision. As far as the tenants are concerned, those are generic tenants. And I might point out that the building is about 9,900 square feet in total from outside wall to outside wall. The actual gross leasable area is under 8,000. And the reason for that is obviously you have wall thicknesses. We pushed the building back 8 feet of what we could have actually built from, which is the front property line. And we've also included a corridor in the back that totally encloses all of the trash and the meters, all the utility connections and so on. And regarding the storm runoff, we have 2 roof drains, and the roof drains will drain directly into the storm sewer. There'll be no runoff from the property whatsoever except for into the storm sewer itself, which it does now, only it does on the surface. So the only surface drainage is going to be the sidewalk.
Okay, Thank you for clarifying. Commissioner Rockwell.
Could I ask, while you're up here, just your reaction to the idea of a corner entrance?
I really have to talk to our architect about it, but to be honest with you, it's a
You're pretty
possi-
close already, so.
It's a possibility. I mean, we have to see how, obviously, if we have a restaurant, that's where we want the restaurant to be. And, if the corner entrance would work for a restaurant, I don't have a problem with it whatsoever.
Commissioner Magrino.
Yeah, I have a question, maybe either for staff or the applicant. I can't remember from committee the whole, did we discuss potentially bumping out the curb at this intersection, or does the bus turn kind of preclude that, or did we talk to Metro Transit about that?
Commissioner Magrino, so a bump out at the intersection?
Yeah.
To extend the, I don't recall the discussion there, and we can raise that with Public Works, but that was something that was not called out as something that's going to be happening in the near future, or plans were made for 50th or Bryant from modifying those streets or the right of way.
Okay, thanks. And I guess then a follow-up question for the applicant, are you going to be rebuilding the sidewalks along the property? Okay, okay, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Lupke here.
Aaron, hi. Aaron, just because I think the one speaker kind of hit the nail on the head in that this isn't going to help or kind of be the straw, although it may be a different straw coming shortly. But in regard to the parking situation, do we know the name or number of somebody at Public Works that they can talk to regarding residential parking permits that would at least allow them to, have use of the street and be able to have a guest over, or they can park in the street or whatever, and then limit people coming to the area, maybe restrict them more so they would be inclined to use buses since there wouldn't be any parking available for people coming from the burbs, or maybe it would at least have an impact on future development if it wasn't successful in doing so. So who do they talk to at Public Works, or do we just, is there somebody that we know, or is it just they call Public Works? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a webpage devoted to critical parking areas, and they're often in the letter, I think from my colleague Josh Johnson, he said that, or in the conversations with him, that the current parking situation, in his opinion, did not rise to the level of having a critical parking area.
But as a neighborhood, they could pursue it with them and see if they can make a case.
Yes, and there's the letter in the public comments, and happy to distribute the webpage to look at that process. But at this time, yes, that was the analysis.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, Commissioner Slack.
Just Aaron on that. Is any sense of what the threshold is for sort of critical designation?
I don't want to speak incorrectly, so I can look quickly in a few notes that I had, but I don't know the specific threshold. And as Commissioner Lupke here mentioned, or that we were just talking about, it can be neighborhood driven. So I think that point, or that threshold can vary depending on the area. South of 40th Street, I saw 4 critical parking areas. There were 2 near schools, and one was there's 2 in commercial areas. So it can vary.
One more question.
Yeah.
Can you throw up those diagrams that had smaller footprints of buildings with parking? So these were options that were developed by the developer applicant?
Correct.
To show, and could the applicant just come up and sort of talk through these real quick for my benefit, and maybe talk a little bit about why these don't work for you?
I'm going to bring my architect up with me.
For me, I'm just trying to understand from the standpoint of practical difficulties, the variances, as well as the parking variance for parking requirements reducing to 0. I usually I'm in favor. This time, I think that there's definitely some challenges and some consideration. So if you could just talk through these and about the designs and potentially
let
why,
me-
why they don't work.
Yeah, let me say a couple words on them, because Brady's actually the one that drew these. However, because of the dimensions of the site, you can't get a double-loaded parking. That being said, you've got to have two-way traffic or one-way traffic, depending on what kind of parking you do, 90-degree or angled parking. Number two, you'll notice that in both of these, where we show the building is right up on the property line in front, which we really couldn't do. We got to move that back another 8 feet. So in reality, that isn't an accurate representation of what the city really wants in this, what staff wanted in this particular location. But Brady is the one that.
Well, I'm Brady Mueller with Clark O'Brien Mueller and Associates. Terry basically said what it is. We can get, it's either got to be two-way traffic or one-way traffic. And if it's two-way traffic, everything is coming in and out in Bryant, really close to the intersection. You talk about causing issues at an intersection. If we had 5 cars trying to leave this development, 50 feet from the intersection, it'd be a little hard. So we didn't think it worked very well because the building's set right on the street on both sides in order to get all the required setbacks. And we're still, just doesn't work. We looked at parking underneath the building. That was just economically unfeasible. We needed 3 levels. We also looked at putting retail on the first floor and having 3 to 4 stories of multiple family housing with 3 levels of underground parking. And this would have shaded 3/4 of the block, literally. I mean, the condo building behind this would have been in shade all day long. And so we looked at those options and came down to a 1-story setback, widen the sidewalks. We felt that was the most economical, the most efficient development for this site.
Probably the most attractive.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Commissioner Gagnon, do you have something?
So, and this, I think it's for Aaron. Thank you guys. Sorry. It's your Fitbit time. So the traffic study was done during the summer. It was done during the 4th of July weekend, which when we do know a lot of folks are gone and so forth. But the other concern that I have is it's several blocks down from what will soon be one of our larger high schools in Minneapolis, and our largest middle school. And there is a lot of youth, bike, pedestrian traffic in that area. That is a Washburn High School attendance area. So, and Bryant isn't a protected bike lane, obviously, and it is very well used, since the other bike lane that is protected is Blaisdell, the one-way. So that is a highly used bike lane for our youth. It is a kind of a blind area there, and I don't think the service delivery truck question was answered. So considering that when school starts, the traffic in that area is what I would assume is exponential. I mean, I used to live by there. I live on one side now, I live by there on another side. How does that play when the traffic study was done in a time that doesn't consider youth, doesn't consider school in session, doesn't consider normal work travel? That's a huge concern to me, given the amount of youth. You'll have 2,000 kids at Washburn High School the next couple of years, about 1,000 kids at Ramsey. That's 3,000 youth from August through June that do love the malt shop and so forth and so on, and might love this place. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm really curious and concerned about that.
Sure. Just to be clear, the traffic demand management plan, or the traffic plan, traffic analysis, that was not required by CPED or Public Works because of the size of the building. It's a small building. It was at the council member's request to just get a feel of what parking demands were in the area. And that's the summary that you have in your addendum packet. The service and putting the loading and unloading of the truck here and trash pickup, given there's also a fire hydrant there, but this is something that Public Works has asked in the preliminary development review to work with the applicant to have a plan in place that will be the safest possible. So they do recognize it's a tight site and it's a tight portion of the site along Bryant, but that there will be, with working with the applicant and our colleagues, that it will to alleviate safety concerns. And finally, I just confirmed with Public Works that having that building wall at this location right up to Bryant Avenue was not a concern from a safety standpoint, but we can, so I just wanted to mention that, and that was an important architectural detail to just have, to give the building depth. They wanted to continue this portion of the building. This would be step back to the trash area, just to, like they have in this corner here, kind of that awning and protection of the elements for pedestrians.
And I just want to note too that many of our high schoolers at Washburn and Southwest drive cars. They don't ride their bikes. And so I would love to move. I mean, my middle schooler, my kids have ridden their bikes. They haven't owned cars, but that's not the norm. So the car issue is a pretty big issue.
And I'll just mention one thing, and then one additional thing, like talking about the positives of the project. Try to mention you may agree or disagree with the bike parking and the transit, but also the benefits to pedestrians in eliminating two curb cuts and those conflict points. This will, and increasing the width of the sidewalk, are, we feel, positives for the residents of the area and the tenants and others that will be using the site.
And Commissioner Lukey-Peter.
Yeah, sorry to get people up. I actually had a question for the architect and the applicant. And Aaron, could you put that image up that shows the two alternatives with the setbacks and the drive aisles? So I had two questions. One was, given the setbacks for the front that you want and which make it marketable as a restaurant space, what would the size of a floor plate be, given if you had to have the required parking? And the one with the red highlighted.
It's 4 or 5. Yeah.
And how does that compare with what you're proposed to have now?
Well, the one on the left
Mhm.
is 4392, but that does not take into consideration an 8-foot setback in the front
Mhm.
and a 2-foot setback on the east.
So it'd be less than 4,000 square feet, is what you're saying, with that.
Right. Plus, the other thing about it is that the depth of the building is about 40 feet or less, and these are not leasable
Okay.
spaces. The other one, it's probably going to be about 4,500 square feet. So.
Okay, and my second question, what kind of linked to that was, and you said you looked at 3-story, 4-story, there's 2-story.
Yes, we did.
And the 2-story one didn't work either, even though square footage wise, it would kind of time out.
2-story?
Yeah.
Well, again, it depends.
I'm just looking at your floor plate going, 2 times 4,000 is roughly where you are
We
now.
didn't look at a 2-story building. We looked at either it was going to be a single-story building or a multiple-story building, like 3 or 4 stories. Having one level of apartments is not going to be economically feasible. We just can't do it. Then you have to have 3 or 4. So 3 or 4 plus 1 retail, we've got 4 to 5 story building, which is out of character in that corner. It would be.
And the other thing that I would mention to that, and I think this is true, Aaron, but we don't have to park residential.
Right.
We only have to park the retail, and we could have up to 50 units.
Right. So then my other question was in relation to this. Did you run these options by Public Works, and what did they think of the curb cut? I'm not sure if it would expand or less. I know there's 2 existing. This would have 2 still. Or did they get bigger if it was 2-way drive aisle or 1-way drive aisle, or is it is it smaller now? I mean, how does it change? What did Public Works think of eliminating curb cuts versus having 2? Did they weigh in on these at all?
I know.
I think they were in on our staff meeting, weren't
But
they?
they didn't.
Yeah.
But Commissioner Lipke here, this these are just illustrations, and they were never shown to Public Works in terms of having off-street parking.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Thank you.
All right. Are there any further questions? And we have 5 applications before us. Commissioner Vreeland.
I would move staff recommendations A through E.
All right. Commissioner Vreeland has moved staff recommendation to approve all applications. That's A through E. Is there a second?
Second, I would offer an amendment.
Second, and by Commissioner Rockwell. And Commissioner Rockwell, you have an amendment?
I would amend site plan review, section E, and deny alternative compliance for principal entrance placement. And so that the entrance would be on the corner entrance.
All right, and we have a motion and a second on that amendment. And Commissioner Rockwell, just as I read through this, which condition is that on the site plan review?
It's not a condition.
You're proposing we add a condition.
We add a condition to deny alternative compliance for the principal entrance placement, section 530.120.
All right, and maybe we should be more specific. So you're saying that the principal entrance should face...
The requirement is that at least one principal entrance faces the public street, which in this case is Bryant, and in keeping with the character of that intersection, an entrance that is at a 45-degree angle precisely on the corner would satisfy that by facing both 50th and Bryant.
I see. That makes sense. So we have a motion and a second on adding that 8th condition. Is there any further discussion on that? Commissioner Lukey-Peer.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank everyone who came out to speak today. I think there's a lot of really valuable testimony. I think, we hear a lot about parking, This one I thought was kind of compelling. The thing that I want you to know, because I think some people worry that maybe we're pro this because it raises the city taxes, and that's actually not something we can consider here at all. I don't think any of us would even know what the tax rate would be for this property. But the thing that we have to do, or that we're allowed to make a decision on, given that we're quasi-judicial in nature, is something called practical difficulties. And you might have noticed that in the packet. You might have heard people saying it. And what that is that in granting a variance, pretty much the primary thing we have to consider, that we can consider, is whether or not the applicant makes a case for having practical difficulties, which is why they can't comply. And so what you're seeing in the diagrams here, for example, and then in their following testimony, is saying if we complied, it would be impractical without going to extreme measures, such as doing a multiple-story building that might shade your thing and impact curb cuts, and who knows what it would do to the busing, et cetera, et cetera. Ergo, therefore, we want the variance to be granted. So while a lot of your testimony is very compelling, we are limited in our purview to what we can rule on. And so I would encourage you to talk with Public Works and to definitely proceed as a neighborhood, since you seem very cohesive, to make a case. I think you could have a strong case for permit parking for residents, and I think that would actually go a long way to alleviating some of your pain, and maybe contact a tow truck company about the people's driveways. But I just wanted to explain so that we don't walk out of here thinking that different reasons for why people vote one way or the other. It just so we are kind of bound to only consider a certain spectrum of considerations and factors. So I just wanted to.
Could you make any considerations for the trees or anything like that? I mean, those are huge. It's so ugly.
All right. Yeah, the public hearing is closed, so we can't take any more testimony. I might, since Commissioner Rockwell added that condition, I might just ask the applicant to respond just on the wording or addition of that 8th condition related to the location of the principal. Yeah, please come to the microphone.
Yeah, you're talking about the 45 degree. Okay. Like I said, I'm open to it, and if it works for the restaurant, it works for me. It's fine. And I do understand that both Bettina and the one across the street from us to the east, I don't know the name of that building, probably has a name, but they also have that 45 degree, I think, both of them. So it would be in it would be a conforming entrance, if you will.
All right, thank you. And so let's do a voice vote on adding that 8th condition to the site plan review related to the principal entrance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. That condition is added. We can go back to our original motion now, which was to approve all 5 applications. Is there any further discussion on that? Commissioner LaBrie.
Can we separate variance request A, item A, from the other 4?
Yes, perhaps you could make a substitute motion that we approve variance A.
So moved. So substituted.
All right. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? If there is none, I'll just add, obviously a lot of the testimony we had revolved around the parking issue, and I realize this is certainly a significant change over the existing condition. This proposal, however, does generally reflect the historical development pattern of this area. Really the scale and the placement of the building, the lot coverage really reflects the other types of development we see in this commercial node as well as others nearby. And I think, as Commissioner LaBrie pointed out, really the applicant has to demonstrate practical difficulties with respect to this variance, and I think they did that. Obviously, it would be very difficult to place a lot of the parking on the site, and I think even if they did, that really wouldn't very well reflect the types of development we want to see. It would actually look a lot like the existing condition, which is kind of unsightly, having just an expanse of asphalt there. And I think the case, especially that the retail bays would have to be very narrow and just wouldn't be very marketable, it certainly helps make that case that it would be very difficult to provide parking on site. So if there is no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Excuse me, we're voting on just...
We're voting on variance A.
Thank you.
Bender?
Aye.
Gagnon?
Aye.
Kranzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Peer?
Aye.
Negrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
Freeland?
Aye.
It's 9-0.
That motion carries. Commissioner Breland, would you like to make a motion on the remainder of the applications?
Yes, I'd make a motion for B through E, staff recommendations. Second.
We have a motion to approve items B through E. Commissioner
And note
Negrino.
that there's been an amendment.
Yes, noting the amendment to the site plan review.
And I'd like to add a second amendment to site plan review. It would be item 9, that contingent on approval from Public Works and Metro Transit. The applicant adds a bump out at the intersection of 50th and Bryan. And staff can work with you on explaining exactly what that is if you're not sure.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to add a 9th condition that the applicant work with staff to potentially add a bump out at the intersection of 50th and Bryant. Is there any further discussion on that? Before we vote, I might just ask the applicant to speak once again if you had any response or concern with that. I think we're leaving that a little bit open, that you can work with staff. If you don't mind coming to the microphone again, sorry to
Was there a second?
making you move.
What that bump out is.
Yeah, Aaron.
We just be extending the curve here out towards Bryant
So you have
50th to have
so
to
you have a
allow
continuous right turn.
to allow a smaller distance that pedestrians have to walk from here to
Oh, I
the
see.
south side of 50th.
Fine. Yes.
And just to explain, I mean, I think all across the city we have a problem with roadway geometry being kind of hostile to pedestrians and cyclists, and I think a lot of the folks brought that up in their testimony, and so that's just a way of making the street environment a little bit better and hopefully slowing down some of those cars that are on 50th that people were talking about, if approved by Public Works and Metro Transit.
right. Is there any further discussion on that ninth condition? If there is none, okay, we have a second now. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Is there any further discussion going back to our original motion to approve items B through E with the addition of an 8th and 9th condition related to principal entrance and bump out? Commissioner Slack.
I'd like to add a 10th condition just to even out the number. I'd like the applicant to add 2 additional street trees within the public right-of-way.
All right. We have a motion and a second to add a 10th condition requiring 2 additional street trees in the right-of-way. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? And that motion carries. So again, going back to our original motion to approve items B through E, we've added 3 conditions to the site plan review, principal entrance, bump out, street trees. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Hanauer.
Chair Brown and Commissioner Slack, do you feel, is there the nuance of working with the with Park Board, or do you feel in reviewing that there definitely is enough real estate to put the 2 additional trees?
Commissioner Slack.
I think there's plenty of room to add 2 additional trees,
Okay.
especially in lieu of potentially a bump out on Bryant. So there's that's why I left it open to public right away. The spacing just, unfortunately, it just starts to block the facade a little bit, which and I think retail uses don't necessarily always like that, but I do think that there is some added value, especially since there are a lot of mature trees that are being removed as part of the project. So
thank you.
All right. So going back to that original motion, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender.
Aye.
Gagnon.
Aye.
Cruiser.
Aye.
Lipke Pier.
Aye.
Magrino.
Aye.
Rockwell.
Aye.
Slack.
Aye.
Squeezy.
Aye.
Breland.
Aye.
It's 9-0.
And that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 3. Our next item for discussion is item 5, and staff is once again Mr. Hanauer. And we can take a minute and let the room clear out. Obviously, we had considered this item at our last meeting, continued it because there was some uncertainty related to the Public Works review of traffic circulation. So maybe, Aaron, you could just give us a very brief update on those traffic issues. And I know Commissioner Cronzer had some additional conditions he wanted to discuss. We did close the public hearing last time just to make sure. Was there anyone else from the public who wanted to speak on item 5? I don't think there is anyone, so we'll keep the public hearing closed.
So Chair Brown, after the meeting with the continuance, CPED, Public Works, and the applicant met that same week to discuss possible changes that would bring to get Public Works support for the access to and inside to the site and to exit the site. And this is the corner primarily that the changes took place. The applicant is proposing a surmountable curb here. It will allow the trucks to exit the site easily, but it will prevent vehicles or discourage vehicles from trying to enter this portion of the site, whereas the parking garage and the point that they're supposed to enter the site is right here. They also put in a pork chop and to help once again encourage cars that are looking to exit the site not to take a left, but only to take a right. And that works another way in that this discourages cars going southbound on Lindale from trying to take a left. It will only encourage vehicles to enter the site when traveling northbound. Signage will be proposed to delineate the different entrance points and to ensure, once again, I think no left turns out of the site. And to Commissioner Lupke-Pierce's point, we're looking at having a low raised bed to reduce the size of that curb cut for pedestrians. And then finally, at the back of the site, they're looking at having monitors to, when trucks are entering the building, this would allow the garage doors to go quickly up so there's not trucks idling in the alley. There's not an official letter of support from Public Works, but I can confirm that there was no objections from reviewing the language that you have in the staff report. I was going to say something else, but you have the traffic demand management plan in front of you. That's an updated one. And that was something that Public Works did not specify that they needed before this public hearing in their review. That just needs to be signed off and updated. They need to sign off on the final version, but it wasn't necessary to have their support for these changes to make it a safer entering and exiting of the site. I have a comparison of the two. If that's somewhat easy to read, I could try to zoom in and I could go to back and forth between the site plans if you'd like. But that concludes the updates for this project.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? If there are none, Commissioner Kronzer, I might just have you go over some of your proposed conditions.
Certainly. And these are just follow on from our public hearing from last cycle. One was to modify condition number 7 as the applicant stated that they would be open to using the metal shingle instead of the vertical brown metal panel. An additional condition to add electricity to the bus shelter. And then in lieu of the decorative trees along Lindell to plant canopy trees. That was it.
So we have some amendments to the conditions. All right. So why don't I just have the applicant quickly respond to the addition of those conditions, and also if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Good evening, President Brown and Commissioners. I'm Don Gerberding from Master Properties. And to address the conditions Commissioner Krosner just spoke about, regarding the exterior materials, we consolidated the materials to enhance the architectural look of the project. And so the 3 primary materials will be brick, metal shingles, similar to the sculpted shingles that one sees at the Walker. And the third would be the ACM, which is what we're considering the metal panels that are the Lucabond, and it's the accent materials which will identify the ground floor. So, and regarding the bus shelter, we have met with Metro Transit, and we're working with their design team for the exact placement of the buses. Both 40-foot and articulated buses do travel on this commercial corridor. And we've identified where that will be. We're also looking, we've requested that they provide us with the bus shelter E, which is the new bus shelter that has a cantilevered roof, which allows more people to gather rather than the traditional C bus shelter. And Mr. Kronzer, I missed your third point. I'm sorry.
It was about the canopy trees along Lindell.
Canopy trees. The applicant really does not have a preference. We put in ornamental trees. The code is for 1 tree. I'm sure we'll surpass that.
All right.
I have one question for
Yeah,
Aaron.
Commissioner Kronzer.
Did Public Works have any comments about holding back on-street parking on Lindell just south of the curb cut to provide a better site triangle? Or is that something that maybe Public Works could take a closer look at? Because it's it's tough even pulling right out of on Lindale here.
I will make note of that and follow up with them.
All right. So we have, let's see here, 6 applications before us. Commissioner Kronzer, would you like to take a stab at
I would.
the motion and
Certainly.
maybe just restate your
Yes, I can do that as we go.
motion?
I'd like to move items A through F, and including the following modifications to the site plan review conditions. Modify condition number 7 to add the applicant shall use the metal shingle in lieu of the brown vertical metal panel. Add a condition number 11, the applicant shall provide electricity to the bus shelter sufficient for lighting and heat. And condition 12, the applicant shall work with staff to plant canopy trees in lieu of decorative trees along Lindale.
All right. Thank you. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Rockwell.
A quick note for Aaron and maybe Jason on this project, and actually also the previous project. I would just encourage on the real-time transit screens on both of these to include where the buses are going, or a bus map. I think we saw on the last set of comments that a lot of people are worried no one's going to take the bus, probably in part because some people don't know where the bus goes, where it comes from. You go to a lot of transit systems, including our own train lines, and it's a Mall of America bound blue line, it's a St. Paul bound green line, whatnot. We could do the same thing. Both of these are on the 4, Richfield bound 4, downtown Minneapolis and northeast bound 4. I think that'd be helpful for bus riders.
All right. Thank you. And Commissioner Vreeland, did you have a comment?
Yes, I would suggest that Commissioner Kronzer's motion is really a motion to provide an electrical connection rather than provide electricity, as per our conversation at our last meeting. So they won't be paying, we're not asking them to pay for the electricity, we're just asking for a connection. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Magrino.
Just wanted to make the quick comment that we've definitely seen this one a few times over the past year, and I'm happy that it's potentially finally getting built, or maybe getting built in the next year. So things like this, adding grocery stores to our neighborhoods, is kind of a big deal when we're talking about walkability and livability of those areas. We have a travel demand management plan here, and I never want to argue with the study, but just in general, making neighborhoods more walkable maybe eliminates the need to have a car at all. And so we're adding those around the city in places like Dinkytown, places like right here, maybe another one in a few minutes down at 46 in Hiawatha. Really supports a vision for living in the city that we are working towards. So thanks for sticking with it over the past year.
Thank you. If there is no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bender?
Aye.
Gagnon?
Aye.
Kronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Peer?
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Black?
Aye.
Sweezy?
No.
Freeland?
Aye.
It's 8-1.
And that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 5. Our final item for discussion tonight is item 9, 3939 East 46th Street. Staff is Ms. Widmeyer. And we saw this at Committee of the Whole several months ago. Maybe you could give us a quick update on any changes. And I think we have a few people who would like to speak.
All right. Let's see. So, recap of the changes that you would have occurred since Committee of the Whole would include adding a corner entrance at the corner of 46th and Snelling, and that would be for the grocery store. So it's a principal entrance, where that wasn't there before. Another change was shrinking up the drive aisles in the parking area. And there's another main concern that, sorry, slipping my mind, or main change, rather. Oh, and they did add more articulation to the floors on 46th Street. So they added bump outs along that elevation. And just for the recommendation, staff is obviously recommending approval of these and spoken with the developer, and they are not objecting to those recommended conditions. So I guess I have a question for the commission. I know that, or at least the concerns that I've heard about are related to height, alley access, and some stormwater runoff. So I could just focus on those, or I could do a full presentation if there's a preference.
I'm not sure we need a full presentation.
Okay, so I'll just focus on those three things. And of course, if there's anything else, I can discuss that as well. With the height, they are asking for a conditional use permit to increase the maximum height. The allowed height would be 4 stories, 56 feet. They're requesting 5 stories and 70 feet. So here's a couple elevations of the building. And I'll just note that most of the building is at 65 feet in height, and the elevator overruns would extend to 70 feet. So that height increase is including the elevator overrun. So therefore, we get to a total height of 70 feet. The long-range vision for this area is to have transit-oriented development. And this smaller plan that's been adopted specifically calls for a building that would be 4 to 5 stories in height to attain the desired density for this area. So looking at the proposal and the surrounding properties, determined that the height increase would have very little effect on the surrounding area. So there are residential uses across the alley, but how the height is proposed to be oriented on the site is actually set back pretty significantly from the alley. The closest point where we have the 5-story part of the building is 20 feet from the alley, and that's up towards the north end of the block where it's across the street from a liquor store. So when you get closer to where the residential properties begin, the 5-story portion of the building is set back about 40 feet. The applicant did submit about 40 feet, correct. So the applicant did complete a shadow study, and again, looking at that, there was found to be no significant impacts to any one particular property. Another area that we looked at was that along the west side of the property, there is a future public path that's proposed. And again, there's no foreseeable significant impacts to that future pathway based on the height increase. And so therefore, staff did recommend approval of this application to increase the height. Looking at alley access, the proposed alley access would be for the grocery store. So that is the primary tenant space proposed for this development, and that is to allow trucks access to their loading area, which you can see off of the alley. All the maneuvering would occur on site, but they are requesting that trucks be allowed to pull into the alley to gain access to the site and their loading area. So that proposal to allow that access does require alternative compliance to site plan review. And looking at that, we look at other uses on the block. As I mentioned, there's residential properties on the east side of the alley, 17 total, as well as a couple of non-residential properties that bookend the block adjacent to the alley. Again, this would just be for trucks entering the site to gain access to the loading area. It's not extending far into the block itself. It actually only extends to about the second residential property in. Then with the maneuvering that's proposed, the trucks would be exiting out the property to the west and would not return to the alley. The applicant is proposing to place signs up on the alley so trucks know not to go south beyond a certain point, so that they enter in there to gain access to the loading area. The applicant is also proposing to work with trucks on delivery times to make sure they're on off-peak hours. Finally, Public Works also has looked at this and did not object to the access proposal. So staff did reiterate that through a condition of approval that those no truck signs be placed in the alley and that they work with the truck drivers making deliveries to ensure there's reduced impacts on those adjacent properties. And then the one last thing with the stormwater runoff, what I've heard is that there are concerns with how much water runs off of this site. There are impacts in the alley with storm events. So there's a concern that this new development would contribute to that. They are proposing to contain all of their water on the site. So hopefully that will reduce some of these things that are happening in the alley. They do have a large stormwater system proposed at the south end of the site below the parking area. They're also proposing to do a large landscape buffer along the alley. Again, so that would prevent stormwater from running off into the alley. The water from the building would also be channeled to that system. So those are the main concerns that I had heard. If there are any other questions about conditions that are recommended or anything like that, I can address those as well.
All right, Commissioner Bender.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you speak to the discussion that we've been having with the council member's office about the future vision for a trail along this corridor and how, you know, the site plan sort of interacts with that vision?
So I will go to a different rendering. Oops. There we go. So this is more of a conceptual drawing of the long-term future plans for having a trail, a public trail along the west side of the site. It's in an old railroad corridor that the city now owns. And it's just the segment though between Nawadaha and 46th Street. So this is indicating a way that could be built out. The plans, the detailed plans in the packets don't show this, so that's why I've switched to this. But the long-term proposal is to have that path, public path, established. And potentially it would cross 46 where that railroad corridor currently goes across. Excuse me. But for the interim, given that there's not a safe way to have pedestrians and bicyclists cross 46th Street, the Public Works has called for having Snelling Avenue be used as a route to gain access across 46th at a controlled intersection. So that should improve safety. There's a lot of traffic on 46th Street, which was a big concern of staff. So what some internal discussions that have occurred is how to accommodate pedestrian and bicycle traffic. Now, if it's going to be rerouted along Snelling, we don't know how long it will take to have the trail extend along that railroad corridor. Really long-term plan would be to have a bridge go across. That would be the safest option, but that requires obviously more funding than is currently available. So right now we're looking at how a safe access route can be provided for bikes and pedestrians along the Snelling Avenue extension. And there's a sidewalk that would be provided, obviously, so pedestrians are covered. But the concern that was raised was about bicycle traffic and how that could be accommodated in the Snelling Avenue street design.
All right.
So going back, to the site plan, you can see they have parking lanes shown, drive lanes, and the sidewalks, but then not designated bike lanes. That was the specific concern that I know has been brought up.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff? If there are none, I'll open the public hearing on this item, and I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to speak first. Someone on behalf of the applicant would like to speak, and I know we have a few other people. Just so I have a sense how many of you would like to speak.
Oh, you want the people that are building it to speak?
I'd like the applicant to speak first, and then we can move on. So we have 3 or 4 other people. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, my name is Drew Johnson with Applicant Investment Company. We have our project team here as well. So we're very excited about this project. I thought the comment about infill groceries on the prior project was very fitting here. This area indeed is a food desert per the USDA, and giving people those walkable options for grocery, contributes to that longer vision. According to Google, within a 10-minute walk of the site, there's over 7,000 people and populations, and if you include that with one light rail stop north or south, that goes up as well. So if we want to get into some of the details about how that kind of the evolution of how the trail interfaces with our project in the old railway, we're happy to do that when the time's right. But overall, we just wanted to let you know the team's here and we're happy to answer any questions, and we're okay with the staff report.
Right. Commissioner Kranz.
Yeah. I saw a little exchange with Janelle today about the retail spaces that front 46th and your approach. Can you kind of just explain to the commission how you responded to her and what your approach is to that retail that's not the grocery store?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, it's very clear in the guiding documents, the Hennepin County 2001, or the plan that they sponsored in 2001 that was updated, that part of 46th Street should be alive, should have a retail presence. But knowing, given market constraints and the availability of potential parking being farther away, we wanted to make sure we didn't make that space too deep or too large. So we rotated it so you could have as much activity along the street. And then to keep the building efficient, we plan on all of those spaces being front loaded. So we see more service area retail supporting the larger grocer and then the restaurant.
So would you provide restrooms if needed as you identify your tenants? Because most tenants would require probably a restroom in each one of those spaces.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
you don't mean public restrooms just as part of...
No, as for the space.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions of the applicant? Commissioner Bender.
Thank you. Could you also comment on this discussion regarding putting a bicycle facility up Snelling as an interim solution to the right-of-way challenge that's created by the kind of spaghetti here where the trail is envisioned?
Yeah, that the overall color plans, show a full build scenario where all of the existing uses are gone and there's a nice kind of four-way intersection, but now we inherit many accesses there. So it makes it, this interim condition harder. But our plan is that, to offer the safest spot for peds and bikes to use Snelling as that interim stop to get to the light for a safe crossing. But then as the trail or the high line that's envisioned in the guiding documents goes all the way north, that a more permanent solution can be found. But one environment that we want to create that is important to us in that pedestrian way is that, we work so hard on making sure whomever the grocer is there, oriented out. So that's a very active pedestrian environment. There's life, there's, spilling into that area. So we want to make sure we get kind of the right balance that if you're, hoping to drive your bike 15 miles an hour through there and you need to get someplace really fast, that it's, it's kind of that 70 feet, 80 feet is more of a commercial, slower walk your bike type area, given that there's larger bike trails on the other side of 55 if your goal is, mobility north or south.
All right. Any further questions of the applicant? Hearing none, we can move on to some other speakers. I know we have a few people here, so you can decide. Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Marilyn Morgan, and I live on the second house on this block where they want to build this skyscraper, I call it. And she's going to bring up a picture here. That's the alley. Along there where all those little blocks are behind there, that's our houses on that street. And you talk about, somebody was mentioning getting shaded out by some other facility. If this is 5 stories high, it's going to take my afternoon sun because, I'm on the most protruding end of it. So what I would like to propose is that you move it back further from the alley. The current warehouse that's on there, Caps was supposed to build it 20 feet back. From the alley, they did 12 feet back. So if this is supposed to go 20 or 30 or 40, someone needs to look out and make sure that happens instead of just cheating and just putting it 12 feet back from the alley. And so that's my concern. So besides pushing it back further west, because we're people, a bunch of us are here that live on that block. And if you care about shading people out or putting a skyscraper in their backyard, then listen to us. I mean, what I would like to recommend, I think 4 stories would be reasonable, 1 retail level and 4 housing. That wouldn't be as bad. And also, if you keep it further away from the alley, I mean, look at this picture. Can you get picture 75 up here? I don't know how, I only know how to work a cell phone. I don't have a computer. Okay. So if you look at this picture, there's my alley, there's my house, and this entranceway, it shows a truck coming out of it. To the right, if you're looking at this picture, to the right, it shows a truck coming out of it. And look how close it is to the alley. That's my alley, our alley. And it even has something to compare it with. There's a little station wagon there in the front lower right-hand corner. And that is not even 12 feet from the alley, and let alone 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever they said. That is way too darn close to the alley to build a 5-story building. And there's people living here who don't like, I mean, we like the project. I think most of us agree we like, having the alley cleaned up. And, there's a lot of alcoholics that like to hang out back there because of the liquor store. And we think this new building will not be as friendly to people that think that our alley is a good place to get drunk. But anyway, so if this project could go ahead and just be sure you're far enough west of the alley and maybe lower it to 4 stories instead of 5, because we must have some kind of say-so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And who would like to speak next? Yeah, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Bachman. I'm a resident at 4632 Minnehaha Avenue, so I will be sharing an alley with the new development, and I am a neighbor of Maryland's. I have a couple things I can address tonight, but I will just go ahead and piggyback on the height of the building, because I know that is a topic this evening. I have a question, and I'm not sure if people can answer that question at this point in the game, but currently the building is, I haven't gone out and done my slope, mathematics on it, approximately 3 to 5 feet higher. The ground is built up about 3 to 5 feet higher than the current alley. So my first question is when we're talking about elevation and raising the height of the building, I need to know where it's going to start. What's ground zero?
I can ask Janelle to maybe clarify how that height of the building is measured.
The height of the building would be measured at the front and center facing 46th Street. So I think it's going to be leveled out quite a bit more as far as the whole site with access in the building itself. So the height is measured from 46th Street.
Okay. So then I'm going to take that information and I'm going to go on to my next concern. And maybe this should have been addressed during item 8 because it does have to do a little bit with landscaping, but primarily I will consider myself a bit of a neighborhood alley expert. And our alley has had problems. I've lived there for 20 years. It's taken me almost 20 years to figure out how to survive the alley. This last winter, I had a very nice gentleman who was in charge of snow plowing on my personal phone as a contact. And Andrew Johnson, our city representative, has been helpful in helping me figure out how to do this. I think I finally got to that point after spending $500 on some new tie rods. The biggest problem with the alley and my concerns with elevation have to do with the fact that at 46th Street, you are at a higher elevation than you are, say, by the time you get to the Dairy Queen, which is on the other end. It plateaus for a while, and then it starts going downhill, and then it plateaus right around Emily, my, and Nora's alley backyard. And it kind of stays that way, and then a little bit later it starts to go downhill again. So you can see with the current building, I've been involved a little bit with trying to understand watershed, drainage, stormwater drain off, and all that information was pretty much above my head. But you can see how we have huge problems with a lot of water sitting where it looks like there's going to be a potential driveway, and then extending on towards the next 4 or 5 homeowners' houses. So when we talk about trucks coming through there, added traffic, I just want to know or ask that we be very cognizant, especially with the city. The city is going to have to do a lot more plowing through this alley. One of the big things that happens when I think about trucks using this alley is the fact that we get a snow. The alley goes like this. The snowplow comes through. The snowplow is not like this. The snowplow is flat. So there is always some snow residue left over. They never get all the way down to the cement. Then we live in Minnesota. We get a warm day in February. Slush begins to happen. And sometimes it rains and sometimes it sleets. The end of the story is that many, many winters, we can have 12-inch, what I call ice potholes in our alley. It doesn't happen for the whole alley because, like I said, it goes down and then it kind of plateaus and then it goes down again. As a personal resident, one of the things I've learned is that I have to plow my alley. I am out there with a snow shovel by hand after it snows, shoveling my alley. I just say that's my U.S. swim and fitness. And when it starts to melt, I go out there and I push the water down the alley. Because I grew up on a farm and that's what you do. You get out there and I manually push the water down the alley to get that through, to get that slush moving. So I just ask that these added trucks are gonna hopefully not make more work for me. Hopefully the city will pay a little bit more attention or it becomes a private party issue. The other concern I had in regards to the alley, some of these questions were answered to me. My garage is at a 90-degree angle with the alley. I require at least 3 to 4 feet on the opposite side of the alley to use to get into a 90-degree garage. That means I have to shovel 3 feet on the other side of the alley so that I can get in and out of my garage. I need a place to put that snow. So currently there's a 10.5 measurement of space that I think is allotted for landscaping. I just ask that at least 4 feet of that be flat with the alley so that I can drive on it and shovel it so I can get in and out of my garage. And that also we make sure that we're being cognizant of the snow melting. Where is it going to go? And I'm not an expert in this area, so I don't know the answers. I can just tell you the problems that we've been having. And I think that pretty much covers my concerns with the alley and the trucks coming in and out, the increased traffic. I'm learned a little bit regarding parking from the previous very long item. I'm wondering if there's anything the city could do on a temporary basis for us, because 2 years ago we lived through the reconstruction of Minnehaha Avenue. It almost killed me a couple days. Um, I'm wondering if on a temporary basis, we can get parking permits so that it wouldn't have to become a neighborhood, like, so us as neighbors wouldn't have to be inconvenienced and take time out of our days to try to go do this endeavor, but perhaps that for the duration of this construction period, a single-family home get a couple permit passes. If you live in a duplex, you get 4 permit passes, that just that street becomes permit parking only, or extremely short-term parking during the time of construction, because I'm going to guess that during this construction, it's going to be really difficult to get in and out of our alley and use our car parks in the back. And there is a pilgrimage to Minnehaha Park, and parking in the front is pretty much impossible. The other idea that I had was to also paint lines, because people don't park very efficiently. A lot of people don't like to parallel park, so they waste a lot of spaces. So if the city at all, or if you could direct us on what we could do instead of having to organize ourselves as a neighborhood, go apply for this special permit pass, if we could just do it as a temporary thing during the time of the construction, and that be led or spearheaded by somebody else other than us individuals.
All right.
I think as far as lighting goes, I don't know if there's any opportunity for us as a community to be involved in the collaboration with the lighting that's going to incur. I mean, I'm going to guess with a bunch of parking spots back there now, we don't currently have any lighting back there. I'm going to guess that there's going to be a lot of lighting installed, and I would like to be part of that conversation, or some of us community members, because that's going to mean, I know that was brought up by another community resident in a different part of the city, but that's huge. So I just wanted to make a couple comments. We are not in a food desert. We have 3 grocery stores that are like within a mile and a half. I can walk to Lund's and Byerly's. I can walk to Nokomis Food Pride. I can walk to Cub. Well, I probably ride my bike to Cub, but whatever. So we're not in a grocery store food desert, but I'm not necessarily opposed to a grocery store moving in either. And I do just want to say that I'm not quite sure why we would have to have 5 stories. I think that is a bit excessive. As a neighborhood, when the light rail went in, we had a lot of community forums, and we believed as a community that these buildings should not exceed 3 or 4 stories. And I don't really know if that means retail plus 3 apartment stories, or exactly what that was, but I'm not quite sure why we have to change that, because I think that the community kind of expressed what they wanted. I'm a little concerned about the studies that go on regarding the need. There is an apartment building on the other side of Hiawatha. They have vacancies every other month. There's a big phone number, you can call them. Just ask them for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and they'll be happy to give you a tour of their facility, because they have vacancies. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm not against some apartment buildings. I don't know why we would have to like build so many. And are we really thinking long term? Because I don't know a single soul who's going to be able to afford $1,700 for a 2 bedroom apartment. I mean, I'm a college-educated woman and special education teacher. I've raised 2 kids, and I certainly could not afford $1,700 a month. So seems to be trending a little bit more towards gentrification, in my opinion, but I guess that's my comments for tonight.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
I'll try to talk fast, and I talk fast anyway. So I echo the issues with the alley. So whatever we can do to fix that, great. But my bigger problem would be if there's a big old truck parked right in front of my garage, because that's not going to be okay. I live right next to Maryland, so I'm the 3rd house in. Oh, and I'm Emily Schmidt, by the way. My other concern is the off-peak trucks coming. Well, I don't really want a big-ass truck, a big truck coming at 1 o'clock in the morning, beeping and making all of these noises and rumbling my little 1923 house. But I have a problem with that. I like sleeping a lot. Also, the trash smelling. I'm assuming y'all will do something about that, because that's gross. I don't want that either. The other thing that we talked about was the drunks in the alley. And I don't want to give them just a bigger space to play in the parking lot. So I'm assuming there will be some sort of security that will kind of monitor. The lighting will help with that, I think. But as much as I love my liquor store, there are some unsavory characters who like it a little bit more than I do. And then they harass me. And it's to the point I've called the cops multiple times. It's not safe. So as long as we keep it safe, I'm fine with it. Everybody keeps talking about all of these pedestrians and pedestrians are walking. I am that pedestrian. I do have a car, but I drive it maybe once a month to go to my Cub, which I love. But I do walk to the light rail and I get hit or almost hit at least probably once a week. I am constantly paying super close attention to what's going on because cars are not, other pedestrians are not, everybody's on their phones and they don't care about anybody but themselves. So I like the idea of a much safer way to get across 46th. However, I think the city of Minneapolis needs to also consider a safer way to get across 55. We sit and hit the lights, please wait, please wait, please wait. And then the lights change and it should turn to walk and it doesn't. And I could miss 3 trains by the time I actually get across when it says walk. So I am one of those people who walk across and it's not letting me do it. But I understand how the lights work. That blind person next to me doesn't. The person in the wheelchair who's trying to get across in the 18 seconds it gives you, it's not enough time. So it's not only getting across 46th, it's also getting to the light rail. I know that's not your problem, but if that's how you're touting your apartment complex, it is a big issue. And the only other question that I have is what is the average rent going to be?
Right. And
What is the average rent going to be? Is it that around 1,700 or is it 525? Because that's going to bring a very different clientele to our neighborhood.
yeah, so I should say we can't really take into account the price point of housing units, unfortunately,
Okay,
in our
I can.
discussion.
Okay,
So,
that's it.
all right, thank you. And is there anyone else? Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'll try to make this short. My name's Dan Farrell. I live at 4704 Minnehaha. So I'm down the street a ways. I'm lucky that this building will not be directly behind my house. Not yet. I'm very glad of that because I would be very concerned about the shadow. I'm not going to go into detail about the alley. It is a sorry state of affairs. It is so bad that even though there is a lot of driving around there, I don't see nearly as much on the alley than I would expect because I think the visitors know how useless of an alley it is to try to drive through, especially in the winter, thank goodness. But it is really a sorry state. I mean, go skating out there this winter if you don't believe me, because you'll be able to skate right down the alley on your ice skates. I want to talk more about the number of people. We're talking about a building with 146 units and a big grocery store, right? 47,000 square feet. That's a pretty big grocery store. I mean, it's not a big box store, but it's pretty big. It's getting up there, right? How many parking spots are going to fit in that lot? I didn't see a number. I don't know if you can provide a number, but 146? It's pretty safe to guess that there's going to be a car for each one of those rented apartments. I mean, I love the car-free city vision, but these are renters. You know, they don't live in the city full-time like the property owners do. They're going to have to park somewhere, and they're not going to. And if they fit in that lot, then the people for the grocery store aren't. So just doing the math, you know, assuming even just one car per unit and a couple of hundred people in the grocery store, there's not space for parking for these cars. And I think it is a valid concern. In the summer, it's a very busy park. It's a very popular park. And I'm concerned that there won't be any parking for anyone. I also wanted to discuss the issue for the residents on the block of being able to get out of their garages. I think this is a very real concern. During construction, it'll be especially bad, but also just in general, a lot of them face the alley directly. Mine does. I have about, 4 feet. It just so happens I have a big truck. Well, unfortunately, I need it to move around my boat twice a year. So I have to put it somewhere, and I put it in my garage. And I really need to be able to pull out 4 feet to get into and out of my garage. I also have a little Honda Civic to make up for the carbon footprint. And I also need to pull into that leeway to get into and out of the garage with the Honda Civic. I mean, you cannot turn into a garage from the alley. There's no way you're going to do it. So it's really important that there's enough leeway there and that we expressly say cars need to be able to drive here. Speaking of cars driving in the alley, I would much appreciate an amendment to add speed bumps to the alley if at all possible. Because I don't want to see, I'm not too concerned about the trucks. I think they'll follow the rules. It's unfortunate for you. But the residents and the drivers in that area will go down the alley and turn out into Wadaha to get back on Minnehaha because it will be zero lights. And the whole place is crazy down there with pedestrians. In fact, the pedestrian traffic in the whole area is actually really bad. I used to have an apartment in Whittier. A lot of people, a lot of cars. The danger I feel on the street daily is way worse in my neighborhood than it was in Whittier. Because people, like people have said, people just aren't paying attention. They get off of 55, they get onto 46, and I think the light is gonna help a lot. So that really needs to happen. It'll break up the traffic flow, and that light really helps a lot. But overall, I think you should look really carefully about these variances and ask yourself, why do we need a 5th floor? Why do we need more than double the default allowed space in the grocery store? I mean, obviously it works well for the investment company, and I can appreciate that. And, it's going to add a lot of units, but the number of units isn't a variance, right? The number of units isn't necessarily going to change here. Are they bigger, or how does that 5th floor work here? I think that you all should deny the variance on the 5th floor. And you should consider whether you can balance that grocery store size down a little bit for the neighborhood. I wanted to point out that there are a few open real estate spaces for retail in the small strip mall on 55. On Hiawatha, there's a retail space on the bottom of the apartments there, next to the light rail line. Nothing's ever been there. Now it looks like somebody's doing something in there, so maybe there will be something soon. But they've also been doing things in there before, so I don't know when there'll be something there. Back where Pink Consignment used to be on 46, there's been a couple of stores coming in and out. I think one went out of business. So I want to make sure that we don't add too much retail space that no one wants to use. A variance maybe on retail space is perfectly reasonable, but a variance of more than double is maybe a little high. And the 5th story is just completely unnecessary. I realize that we're looking at a state of the city where there's more bikes and more cars and more people and higher densities, and that's the direction we're going to go in. But I think we should take careful steps. There's more than enough space to develop along 55 without making every building a little taller than we even were going to allow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes. Please state your
My name is
and
Harry
address.
Hartigan, and I live on the block that will back up to this development. I worked on the project previously with Sandy Coven-Roy in 2005 when we planned 500 units back there, which included the strip mall and Bridgman's and all that kind of thing. And I realized the high density of that area, how important that is to the city. And I have no objections to the building. I think it'll be a huge improvement over the cap site that there's right now. I am concerned about the grocery store. It looks like they're looking for more space for a grocery store. We had at one point a Cub that was proposed there that kind of the neighbors just kind of got hysterical about. So I think the key element here is Minnehaha Park is an asset to the city. We right now on that street cannot park, period, when the park is active, which is spring, winter, or not too much winter, but the fall and summer. So we can't ignore that piece, that's part of this development. And that eventually, whatever happens at that site, protecting that alleyway, those things are all important. And I guess what I'm asking is that the developer work with the people who back up to that site, because we're going to be forced to live with it. And that's what I think is critical here. We don't know what that little building is on the site. And this is supposed to be high density. There's a little 4,000 square foot building.
On the Snelling part?
On
that
the,
little Snelling
yeah,
triangle?
right. So that's what I got to say. Thank
All
you.
right, thank
And
you.
thank you for your patience.
And yeah, thank you. Yes, next speaker, and please state your name and address.
This is Maya Bjornson. I live at 4636 Minnehaha. And I'm just concerned about the grocery store in the back. They're going to have a loading dock, and it's going to be towards the residential part, towards us. Is that right? On the east side?
It'll face the south.
And so there'll be truck traffic coming in the middle of the night? Or, late at night, there'll be trucks loading, and I'm also concerned about the light. I mean, if this is gonna be a parking lot that goes back towards the Dairy Queen, I mean, it's nice to be out at night and have it dark out, It's very pleasant to be out in the evening. And I don't want a Klieg light parking lot lights bleeding across the alley. So I'm just concerned, I mean, how far is that gonna go back? Because it's just really an unpleasant place to be. You don't want to be in your backyard, and I don't have any place else to go if I go to the park. That's my
Right.
concern. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anyone else? Yes, please state your name and address. One last speaker.
This way. Nora Okaneski. I live at 4628 Minnehaha. And my house is actually built on the alley, 5 feet from the alley. I have all my windows right there, and I'm the 4th house down. So I'm about ready now to throw up when I hear semi-diesel trucks are gonna come down that alley because it makes me sick. I get headaches and sick from diesel exhaust. They should figure out a way to enter it in their own property and not come down our alley. That's horrific. Although I'm very appreciative that they're taking away that building that was built the year that I moved in, 1995. When they built that giant building, it's all flat, and there's that one place where all the water comes out in the middle of the building. You've heard about the water and ice problems. Well, it would come out and turn into giant glaciers, and then at some point crash down in the alley, and if, you could die if you were walking down the alley. I don't know why they ever let them do that. I heard they have to pay money to the watershed district because of how screwed up their water thing is. So I'm really grateful that that building's going away. And I'm freaked out that there's going to be diesel coming down my alley. And my main point that I wanted to bring up, and I know it's not yet because we're living in the past type of energy program, but 50% of our fossil fuel use is for heating and cooling of buildings. And my opinion is, even though they don't have ordinances yet or demand, controls of what people do, if they're going to dig into the ground to build a new building, I'd like somehow to ask just to do the right thing. There isn't ordinances yet, but geothermal heating and cooling is so important. And I don't know if everyone knows about it, but the candidates running for governor next year sure do. Rebecca Otto has it in her house. It's extremely important, and it's been neglected so far as an issue. But anyway, it's not part of this issue, but I just asked, could you consider doing the right thing? And it's like our library did. When they renovated our Nokomis library, they dug in and put the geothermal. And so it costs like $15 a month to heat and cool the place. So that's my main issue is that, but I'm gonna freak out if semi-trucks are coming down my alley. I might have to turn into a terrorist because the way it makes me feel to breathe diesel would make me mentally disturbed enough that whatever. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I don't think we have anyone else who would like to speak on this item, so I'll close the public hearing. And commissioners, we have, 5 applications before us. Are there any further questions, or would someone like to start the discussion off with a motion? Commissioner Kranz.
I have a question for the applicant. Have you looked at the alley turning movements that we've heard about, and can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, maybe 2 things on, and how do you get back up the site plan, or what's the easiest way? Because I heard 2 things that I think are that can help with the conversation that are factual. The first one, why it's getting pulled up, is I believe, and during a lot of the public meetings we discussed it, but I think a lot of the alley conditions with the ice is that the scuppers from the building drain right to the alley, and the building actually is built pretty much on the property line. I think it's 12 feet from the center of the right of way, and the building is over 80,000 feet, and the footprint of this is closer to 50. So there is more more roof water coming into the alley, which obviously on this project is built to
Did you say there won't be any roof water coming into the alley?
No.
Yay! that's-
Rainwater collection, I really.
Okay, the public hearing is closed, so.
Okay, so yeah, so that was one thing I think was easily corrected, and then I don't know, can you guys see my mouse here? But one of the reasons of this geometry here is that when trucks enter the site from 46th Street, they pull off the alley right where the current city lot is right now, and then they back into the loading dock, and then they have to exit the site this way to likely 55 will be a ride out on 55 will be their most expedient way to return or make their next delivery. So because of this geometry and because of where the alley hits Nawadaha, you know, unless a trucker wants to make loops around the alley, there's no physical way to access the site and load if you're coming northbound down the alley, and it's purposely designed that way. So there should be zero truck traffic beyond the city-owned parcel because of this geometry.
Where do they back?
All right, the public hearing is closed, so we can't have any back and forth. Are there any further questions? Commissioner Slack.
Just for a point of clarification, can you describe sort of the timing of deliveries and frequency of deliveries?
Probably eight to 10 per week. And again, timing would be, you know, if there's conditions of approval, but I think it's usually from 8 a.m. till 10 is the most, you know, I think in the grocery world, the most frequent, you know, when shelves are being replenished. And then there are some trucks that would remain in the sheltered loading dock for, you know, work inside.
8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Right.
Okay. So some of the comments were about deliveries during the evening and at night not happening.
All right. Any further questions, or would someone like to start things off with a motion? Commissioner Magrino.
Question for the applicant. So in the packet on page 5, we've got that site plan, which seems a little bit more conceptual than the actual plans that are, you know, further on in the packet. And the the way the traffic works coming, you know, down Snelling out of the parking lot and then over to 55, it seems to make a little bit more sense long term than kind of, as Councilwoman Bender was saying, sort of like the spaghetti thing that is going on now. And I mean, is there a reason that it looks more complicated on that than on this? Sorry, that's kind of a
Let me
broad
get
question.
to page 5.
Yeah, it's on 5 here. I'm not sure where it is in the PDF.
It's the illustration
Yeah.
of the.
I'm not. Yeah, it's kind of far. So you've got it labeled as 5. I'm not sure where. Yeah, there you go. So just because sort of thinking long term about potentially having a bike facility that goes along Hiawatha there, and you've got that on the site plan, the way that the bike facility interacts with Snelling there makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of hard to imagine working that into what you've kind of actually got proposed. So, I mean, is there a way that that intersection could be simplified a little bit?
And I think the answer is yes and agree. And maybe Janelle could speak to this, but one of the Hennepin County comments, which has been incorporated into the final submittal, was to add that additional kind of swoop or change to discourage cut-through traffic. And that's what you see there that I think from it is the Hennepin County updates to that plan that had a, let's call it an easier movement northbound from Snelling, the Snelling extension.
Mm-hmm. So that's the piece of road there that's like, yeah, I guess you said swoop kind of into, what even is that back there? Is that another alley, or is that just sort of, sorry. Okay, so that's kind of, is that public right of way? I wish I could point at it on the.
Yeah, I'll show you where, yeah, the public right of way is pretty, so.
Yeah, that's the swoop
Yeah,
there.
so public right-of-way is all this part here.
Mhm.
So our property line is actually right here.
Okay.
And then that road is dedicated to Minneapolis as what the master plan documents always showed.
And so Hennepin County wanted you to add that piece of road there that's labeled, it looks like saw out, to facilitate what movement for traffic?
That is to try to offset that, so it's not a five-way intersection.
Mhm.
And I think, and it's buried in the TDMP, and I think this was the part of the plan that we probably spent the most amount of public time, and Trish's was Kimley Horn, and she was involved more in that process. But this is a permanent easement to Minneapolis should access here or here on behalf of the city or the county choose to be closed. And I think that does simplify this intersection too, but it's on the other side of the railroad tracks property, so beyond our control. But we've dedicated that additional option to simplify intersections should access to the two business want to come via permanent easement here. Any help on that, Trish?
My name is Tricia C. with Kimley Horn, 2550 University Avenue, St. Paul. Like Drew said, I'm a civil engineer working with Applicant on this project, and we have had countless hours and conversations with both city public works, with the county, looking at the specific intersection. And it is really tricky because you have a couple driveways that are all coming in at the same point. So we tried to make it as efficient and as safe as possible with some changes that county wanted to discourage the cut through traffic coming from Snelling straight to 55, hence why now it's aligned right there with the access to the strip retail. And then we also have shown right now this potentially could be an interim plan if some of the other access to the Burger King and the gas station were changed in the future. Looking at it from an overall roadway network plan, and what does the city envision for the future roadway network, and how does this intersection play into it? So we've designed it so that it functions safely today, but also is set up for success in the future where you wouldn't have to tear a bunch of road out.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Are there any further questions, or would someone like to make a motion? 5 applications before us. Commissioner Lukey.
I just had a quick question for the applicant. Just for the sake of being a good neighbor, are you willing to proactively communicate, especially related to construction schedule items, just things to the neighbors adjacent to the alley, and advocate or help them advocate to Public Works regarding in case there's any situations that arise in construction to getting parking, if it's needed, or maybe communicate with them weeks that things might be more difficult than others and what they can do to mitigate that? It seems like some communication would be good.
Yes, no, neighborhood outreach through all steps of the project is, absolutely our intention.
Fantastic. And directly to them and not just through a neighborhood organization?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. And would someone like to make a motion? Five applications, starting with the conditional use permit for height. Commissioner Kronzer.
Yeah, I'll move item A, conditional use permit with the one stated condition as staff has recommended approval.
All right. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second to approve item A, the conditional use permit. Is there any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Kronzer?
Aye.
Lipke.
Aye.
Magrino?
Aye.
Rockwell?
Aye.
Slack?
Aye.
Squeezy?
Aye.
Breland?
Aye.
7-0.
And that motion carries. Commissioner Kronzer, would you like to continue?
Propose a motion to move items B and C with the 2 stated conditions for item B, variance to allow a gross area increase for commercial use, and the 1 state condition for item C, variance to the pedestrian overlay district.
Motion to approve variances B and C. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Cruiser.
Aye.
Lip-Pier.
Aye.
Magrino.
Aye.
Rockwell.
Aye.
Slack.
Aye.
Squeezy.
Aye.
Breland.
Aye.
7-0.
And that motion carries. Commissioner Kronzer.
With the 11 stated conditions?
All right, we have a motion to approve the site plan review with 11 conditions. Mr. Wittenberg.
Commissioner Kronzer, were you thinking of condition related to bicycle access as well?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Rockwell
Okay.
has a comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second, first of all? We have a motion and a second to approve item D, the site plan review, and Commissioner Rockwell.
Yeah, I'd like to offer a condition of approval, number 12, which is that the applicant provide a marked bike route on Snelling, the Snelling Avenue extension between 46th Street and the proposed bike path on the adjacent rail extension until such time as the rail extension path continues north of 46th Street.
All right, we have a motion to add a 12th condition related to a marked bike route on Snelling. Is there a second?
Second.
And we can do a voice vote on Commissioner Rockwell.
Let me just offer one other item here, which is I would encourage you to look at the safest possible type of bike route. It's hard to tell what is possible from these drawings. Ideally, some kind of protected route getting people to 46th Street with bollards or some planters. But I hesitate to give that condition because I'm not sure if it's technically feasible, and I want you to work with staff, Public Works to do whatever is possible there. But if possible to do something beyond just the chicanes, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we can do a voice vote on adding that condition. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Going back to the original motion of to approve the site plan review, is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Cruiser.
Aye.
Lip-Pier.
Aye.
Magrino.
Aye.
Rockwell.
Aye.
Slack.
Aye.
Squeezy.
Aye.
Breland.
Aye.
7-0.
Motion carries. And then finally, item E, the plat.
Yes,
Commissioner
I
Kronzer.
propose a motion to approve the final plat, the final and preliminary plat.
All right, is there a second? We have a motion and a second to approve item E, the plat. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Cruiser.
Aye.
Lip-Pier.
Aye.
Magrino.
Aye.
Rockwell.
Aye.
Slack.
Aye.
Squeezy.
Aye.
Breland.
Aye.
7-0.
And that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 9 and concludes our business for today. We're adjourned. Committee of the Whole on Thursday.